Wow, thank you all so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to be here as we talk about a matter that is of great significance, importance to our judicial system. The state constitution reminds us that the courts are to be open and justice is to be administered without favor, denial, or delay. We have worked hard, you have worked hard, the practitioners, the judges across the state have worked hard to address the COVID backlogs that were in double digits. And I am so proud of all of you as our current case situation is not just as good as it was before COVID, but we are 15 to 20% better than we were. And certainly it's my hope that during my tenure as Chief Justice we can continue to address that issue. Justice delayed is justice denied. And as my wife Megan and I visited all 100 counties, all 102 of our courthouses, plus a few more here and there, what we heard time and time again and saw time and time again was the critical nature of the attorney shortage in so many of our counties, where the attorneys that are there are aging and there are no replacements. So when Jordan during his presidency brought this to our attention, we knew that this was a vital issue for all of us who so are appreciative of the privilege that we have to practice law, the privilege we have to help folks appreciate the promises and the declaration that are incorporated in our state constitution, that all are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, and as we added in North Carolina, the fruits of their own labor. These promises, as Martin Luther King Jr. famously called them, a promissory note, needs to be cashed for every individual. That's what we as lawyers do. That's what our justice system is there for. But if folks who need lawyers don't have any that are available, then often that promise will ring hollow. So thank you for being here this morning. Thank you for helping us as we try to look at solutions. I mean, identifying the problem is always the easiest part of any situation. It's coming up with some solutions. And we as a bar need to see what we can do. I recently spoke to the UNC incoming 1L class. And I reminded them, as I had just recently rewatched To Kill a Mockingbird, frequent recurrence of fundamental principles. The idea of why did we go to law school? We did to serve people, to serve individuals, our communities, our state. And Atticus Finch is such a great example of the citizen lawyer, the individual who helps shape his community's perspective. Certainly, people who practice in some of these areas where we need practitioners, they should, if they want, as I told the 1L class, if they want to truly make a difference in their communities, these smaller communities, give them that opportunity. And it's also interesting, I have a lot of law students who say, hey, I want to be a judge. Guess where the vast majority of our judges come from? They come from these smaller communities. And yes, currently it is a legal desert, but as you will hear from Jimbo, the opportunities make it a legal oasis. So again, thank you for being here. Thank you for your heart for our profession. And I look forward to hearing you all talk about solutions going forward.
Thank you, Chief Justice. We appreciate you taking the time to be here and recognizing this important issue. I am Marcy Armstrong, the current president of the State Bar. I have with me today Todd Brown, who's our president-elect, and Matthew Smith, who's our vice president, and we welcome you to the State Bar building. If it's your first time, welcome. Don't make it your last. And if you're coming back again, we're glad you're here. Have a few announcements today. Before we get started, this is being recorded, just so you will know that. If you've looked at the agenda, it's a very ambitious schedule we have today with a whole lot of information crammed into this time frame from 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock. I'm very well aware that this is the Thursday before Labor Day weekend, and we're gonna get this done by 2 o'clock today, because I'm also aware of the traffic issues heading west and the traffic issues heading east if you get out of here much later than that. So, having said that, we are going to stick to the time, and I think that Jim has done a good job at telling all the speakers and the panelists they have 5 minutes each. But just in case you forget, I have appointed Matt Smith as our buzzer czar. So,
way too much power for me.
So we know something he's actually capable of doing well. So anyway, if you hear that noise, that means do it. And the thing is, at the end of the program, there will be a time for discussion. So if you have to stop mid-sentence and you thought there was this really important thing that you needed to say, there will be time at the end today for discussion. And the other thing is, we are not going to take questions as we go along. So you can either jot down questions that you have, or there's, for all of you tech-savvy folks, the QR code on the back of the program, and Brian will be monitoring your questions. If there's a question that comes in that just makes sense to go ahead and answer it, we'll do that. Otherwise, we'll deal with the questions at the end of today during our discussion time. We are not going to take a break except for lunch. So, I mean, if you need to get up, feel free to do so. The format of the room makes it easy for people to go and come, and the restrooms are out the door to the left if you don't know that. So, but we'll not have any breaks except for lunch. That will be around 12 o'clock. I would ask that, and I'm trying to remember to mention this again, the panel that is going to present right after lunch, if those members of that panel could go first. And serve themselves first. And once you serve yourself, you'll come back to your seat. Once everyone has been served, we will continue the program so that we don't get off schedule. We all know that an event like this, and just look at this room, look at this room. This is a great group. But this doesn't happen just automatically. There are folks behind the scenes that make this happen, and I really do want to thank a few people. Jimbo Perry being number one. I told his wife this morning, I don't know what you feed this guy, but I want some of it because he's got so much energy. Our State Bar staff is just awesome, and there are several that have really been very helpful in getting this together. Caroline Laster, who's our event planner, you saw her this morning when you came in. Chung Chan, our facilities manager, he's helped to get this room set up. Mike Ostigai, I hope I get his name pronounced right, our IT person. Damon Zerby, who's also an IT person. And of course, our fearsome leader, Alice Mine, Peter Volak, and Brian Oaten. So really do appreciate all of them for making this happen. I would love very much, if time would allow, for everyone in this room to be able to tell who they are. That just can't happen again because of the time, and I'll probably get buzzed in a minute. I would like for you to at least know the breadth of the experience and perspective that we have in this room today. So generally speaking, we have representatives from our court system, including our appellate, superior, and district courts, as well as various court commissions. State Bar presidents and a number of State Bar counselors, past presidents as well as counselors we have with us today, representatives from the North Carolina Bar Association and from our state law schools. We have prosecutors, we have criminal defense lawyers, we have representatives from the indigent legal services community, including Legal Aid of North Carolina, PISCA Legal Services, and the Office of Indigent Defense Services. And then an assortment of lawyers who are different practice areas that are here with us today, excuse me. And so we're just so happy that you're all here. Very quickly, we're just honored, the State Bar is honored to be co-sponsoring this Chief Justice with you and your commission. As the officers have traveled across North Carolina to district bar meetings, we have heard Jimbo's passionate plea across the state to encourage young lawyers to go to our legal deserts or our oases. And we had this district bar presidents came to the State Bar building in May, and many of the district bar presidents from the rural areas told us and told the Chief Justice that day and those of the others that were present about their concern about not having lawyers in their communities and the real, in the future, not too far distant future. So we heard from them. The State Bar officers also traveled. We went to the Southern Conference of Bar Presidents in Austin, Texas last year. We heard about incubators. I mean, this is a weird word, but that's when we first heard about the incubators in Texas. And we had that person to speak to our Legal Deserts Committee, and Jimbo was there. So you can hear some more about that later today. We know that all of you represent organizations or groups that care about this issue as passionately as the CJCP and the State Bar does. Our Legal Desert Subcommittee is chaired by Alan McCoy. You'll hear from him. Okay. You'll hear from him in a moment. I get it. So I'm excited. We're here today to figure out, how can we address this problem with the urgent needs, but also long-term. And there are so many different ways, and hopefully you will learn something today. This is a conversation. So, I've been buzzed, so I'm stopping, and we're going to go on with our first speaker today. And so we have with us a former Royal Navy Marine, Officer Dan Alexander, and also attorney from Bunn, Reader Neal. Are they both with us? Okay, there you are. All right. Okay, don't get buzzed like me. I set a bad example.
Well, thank you, Mal. Is this on? Yeah. It's on? Yeah. Great. Thank you, Mal. Thank you, Justice. And good morning, sirs, ma'ams, ladies and gentlemen. Let me begin by saying it is a great honour for me to be here to speak to you today. And hopefully what I've got to say might be of some encouragement to you guys entering into this.
Get your mic again.
Yeah, it's on, it's just, you need to get closer.
Okay. Let me also express, as a man who's not in the legal profession, a broader gratitude for your vocation and all the hard work that you put in. I very much believe that what you do is a golden thread that runs through the fabric of this nation, and it is very much appreciated. So, when Jimbo first asked me to speak this morning, I said, Jimbo, I'm not a lawman, and there's no background in that. And he said, well, don't worry, just say something totally inspirational. And you've got 5 minutes. And so I said, well, what could that possibly be? And he said, well, Dan, just give the same talk you gave my Sunday school 3 weeks ago. So I have trialed this talk with some third graders, and I'm hoping it has. So, by way of background, I'm Dan, and I've spent 10 years in the British Royal Marine Commandos, and I picked up a few life lessons that are broadly applicable to really any sort of enterprise. And so I do have one story that I thought that might be of encouragement to you and of interest. Halfway through my career, I decided to go on selection for one of our sort of premier Special Forces teams. And the first phase of selection was mountain phase, whereby you would spend 3 weeks walking through the mountains on your own from point to point to point, and the distances and the weights would get incrementally heavier and longer. And I remember we would wake up each morning at 4 a.m, we'd have a large but quick breakfast, and then we'd all file down to the parking lot where we would wait for the vehicles to pick us up. And those trucks would take us some remote drop-off point in the mountains, and we'd spend the rest of the day with a backpack on, walking through the snow, over the mountains, through the valleys. I remember sitting there and watching guys who had their names called, and some would get up and pick up their bag and get on the truck, and others would get up and go and stand in an area that was designated for those who didn't want to continue anymore. And I remember sitting there, I think it was probably day 3 of 3 weeks, and I felt completely broken, completely fatigued and exhausted. And when I measured myself against the magnitude of the task in front of me, I just felt completely inadequate. And I knew that every other man next to me was facing the same dilemma. Everybody felt tired, everybody felt inadequate, and everybody felt that they wouldn't be able to complete 3 weeks of marching through the mountains. But I remember sitting there in the dark with the rain pouring on my head, thinking, I can't do this is too much. But when my name was called out, I was faced with the choice of, do I go and stand where those who have fallen stand, or do I get on the truck? And I realized that I could actually get on the truck, even though I felt completely broken, and even though I knew that I thought that I knew I probably wouldn't make it through the day, I knew I could get on the truck. So I picked my bag up and got on the truck. And then when I got dropped off and was given my first checkpoint, even though I had no confidence that I'd finished the day on time, I knew I could get to the first checkpoint. And so when I got to the first checkpoint, I made the decision that I could also get to the second checkpoint. And incrementally, over the course of 3 weeks, I came up with this saying in my head that was, if I can, I will. And it doesn't matter how inadequate I feel when measuring myself against the magnitude of the task, if I can just do the next thing, whether it be take the next step, or get to the next fence line, or get to the next checkpoint, if you can physically do the next task, then just do that and don't worry about the magnitude of the whole task. Because when we measure ourselves against the grandiose significance of the enterprise, we do become discouraged because we just, you can't do it all at once, all on your own. And so really the life lesson that has since stuck with me and I share every now and then when asked is, don't measure yourself against the magnitude of the task. Measure yourself against the magnitude of the thing that you can do immediately. And I think if you break down any task in that way, then incrementally you can achieve success. So I just hope that you'll remember that when you measure yourself against the task that you've come here today to address. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I am Rita Neal, and I was born and raised in Bud, North Carolina. Just a little bit about me. I am in private practice, kind of pushed into it, but I really enjoy it. I graduated from North Carolina Central School of Law in 2021, and I had a little pause where I was trying to figure out what I was going to do, and I joined the legal incubator that Mark Atkinson started up. I think I was second cohort, and with his guidance and help, as well as other attorneys in my county, Franklin County, pushing me and helping me along, I just was like, okay, let's do it. So I opened up my law firm officially January 1st of 2022. And also shout out to the district attorney, Mike Waters, here today. Good to see you. But I just want to share, I grew up in Bun, where I think the population now is 330, last time I Googled it. So it's not really many people there, but just in Franklin County as a whole. So I try to encourage more, high schoolers, like, if you want to shadow with me or ride along with me, most of the time I'm working out of my car anyways. So I try to just let people see another side, because really they're like, I don't really know what lawyers do, or they just see from sitting there, or because they had a case and they're like, I don't like the experience. So I'll just encourage any and everyone, just to even if you don't want to be a lawyer, just to sit and watch the legal process, because you might like probation, or you might like any other services that is involved. And I'll just say, with me, people are like, oh, you're such an inspiration. And I'm like, I'm just working. I don't see it or see myself as like this big figure. But to my little cousins or just random people I see, they're like, I saw your Google ad and stuff like that. I'm a hero to them. So I just use that to drive me and push me along. And then it's just so much support. The Legal Eagles nest is so big and strong. Everywhere you go, someone is there helping you. So I just try my best in Franklin County, and I run pretty much the whole district except for Person County. That's a bit far from me, but in Vance, Warren, Granville, just try to encourage whoever I see and, just tell them my story because that's the only story I have to tell. So, and I also just want to thank Jimbo and Mark for putting me in contact with this, and I'm really excited to be a part of this. So thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Brian Oden. I'm the Director for Ethics and Special Programs here at the State Bar, and I've also had the pleasure of serving as the Staff Counsel of the State Bar Council's Subcommittee Studying Legal Deserts. As the Chief mentioned earlier, Darren Jordan appointed this subcommittee last year. We started our study in June 2022, looking at this issue that we call legal deserts. The issue is really the reality that there are many parts of our state that simply don't have enough lawyers. And that has a ripple effect. We see how a lack of lawyers leads to a lack of legal services, and a lack of legal services leads to a lack of meaningful access to the civil and criminal justice system. So we started, and we've covered a lot of grounds over the past 15 months, but we started just making sure that we were speaking the same language and that we understood where our legal deserts were. And that's what I'm going to do with you all today. So we're going to start by taking a look at the definition of a legal desert. A legal desert, just so we're on the same page, legal desert is defined as an area that has less than one lawyer for every 1,000 residents. All right, less than one lawyer for every 1,000 residents. So once we kind of, agreed on that definition, this is a common definition across different jurisdictions, and it's probably no surprise to you all that North Carolina is not unique or alone in experiencing this legal desert phenomenon. But when we had that definition in mind, we took a look at our data. We looked at the general population data. We looked at our lawyer population data here with the State Bar to identify where do we have certain counties where there's less than one lawyer for every 1,000 residents. And what we found was this. This is a graphic that you probably all have seen at some point. The counties that are marked in orange and red are legal deserts. Red being the more significant legal deserts. You can see they're mostly in the eastern part of the state, particularly in the northeastern part of the state, but there are a number of deserts as you head out west towards the mountains. Now, North Carolina as a whole is not a legal desert. North Carolina has two and a half lawyers for every 1,000 residents. So we ended up looking at this question of, well, so where is everybody? Where has the population gone? And we looked at general population trends. You saw from 2010 to 2020, the population of North Carolina increased by nearly 1 million people. There's 1 million extra people here in 2020 as opposed to 2010. And that trend has continued even during the COVID years. But all the growth was in the urban areas, Wake, Mecklenburg, and the suburban areas. You see Cabarrus blowing up. Johnson County has a lot more people. And so we started looking at, well, what about the lawyers? Where are the lawyers? Well, when you start looking at the lawyer population, you see they trended towards the urban areas, if not more so than the general population. Overall, you saw that, the different colors on that page show that 48 of our 100 counties are defined or meet that definition as a legal desert. But when you look at county data, you see that nearly 44% of the lawyers in North Carolina, the in-state active lawyers, are in Wake County and Mecklenburg County. When you round out and just give us the top 5 most lawyer-populated counties, that'd be adding in Guilford, Forsyth, and Durham, you're looking at 63% of the lawyers in North Carolina in 5 counties. And those 5 counties represent 33% of the general population. All right, so you see this massive concentration of lawyers in these urban areas. And you see out in the east that you have counties like Greene and Camden, Martin County, that have less than half a lawyer for every 1,000 residents. Those are the statistics. That's the reality of these legal deserts. These are our legal deserts. And it reminded of a quote from Albert Einstein that said, in the midst of every crisis lies great opportunity. And I think maybe we can look at it that in the midst of even a legal desert, perhaps lies a legal oasis. And so with that said, I'm going to kick it over to Jimbo.
Thank you.
You don't want to be the second person to get buzzed.
Okay, I won't be. So, for almost 40 years, I've been practicing in a county that may not technically be considered to be a legal desert, but if you look at lawyers doing particular types of work, we are what the state bar and would be called a legal desert. But I can tell you it has been just the greatest honor. Those of y'all that work in small towns, you understand exactly what I'm talking about. It was seldom that me or my clients ever did go much west of the Walmart, is the way that we would say it. But over the last 8 months, I have had the highest privilege of going around the state and talking to many of you and other lawyers and law students just to kind of hear their stories and to hear why they've gone to law school and to hear how their lives are going. And I have become more and more convinced, as I've heard that for many people, really living in an underserved area and working in an underserved area would be really more like an oasis than a desert. What an honor it is to be able to not only help somebody with their case, but to help someone, as Cecil, my friend Cecil from Salisbury would say, to help someone with their life. And to not only do it with their life, but to do it with their family's life. I know that my wife and I, whenever we go to the grocery store, this is maybe the way y'all do it too, but whenever we go to the grocery store, we always allow at least an extra half hour, because that's where we're going to be seeing my friends, who are my clients, who our children go to school together. And we do church together, and we go to the Piggly Wiggly together, and all those things. And what an honor. And we all know that really what matters in life more than anything are the depth of relationships. And so in these small communities, for many of us, it might just be that a smaller community might be best. I want to share just one story, and literally I brought my notebooks. I've got 2 notebooks full of, I'm coming up close to 500 amazing stories I could share, but I just want to share one. I was with a lawyer recently who lives, her district is technically considered to be a desert. And she clerked for a federal judge. And she's a bankruptcy specialist. And she could write her ticket. But she chose a few years ago to say, I want to live in a smaller community. I think maybe the best way I could describe her life would be summarized in this very short story that she told me when I asked her how things were going. She said the other day she got a call from a friend. And the friend said, how are things going? And she said, I'm still at work. I've got 2 more billable hours I've got to get in before midnight tonight. And I'm just kind of hoping I get home in time to be able to tuck my kids into bed. And then she was asked, Sarah Beth was asked, and you're going to hear from her later. Sarah Beth was asked, and what are you doing? And Sarah Beth said, well, I'm on the boat. It's 5:15 in the afternoon. I'm on the boat with my children, where I am on most afternoons at 5:15. The lawyer, whoever the big city lawyer was, they may have a little bit nicer boat, but it's probably it's either in the driveway or on the lift, and probably not all that often do they have a chance to be with their children on the boat. So, what a great message that I get to share. So, Chief, thank you for letting me do this for the last 8 months. As I've gone and I've met students and I've said, what do you want your life to look like? And where do you think you would best be able to live in a place that might be able to give you some control so that you would be able to live the life you want to live? So, what an honor. What an honor it is to be with you today. And as we get to explore ways in which we can share this message of the goodness of living in and working in a legal oasis. Thank you.
Perfect. Oh my goodness. All right, are you going to do this first time?
Yeah, I'll do that. So what we've done today is we've put panels together, and it's going to be a lot of fun. We tried to figure out, and let me just say, Brian, Marcy, thanks for saying that I had a little something to do with this, but Brian has been the man on the ground making all this happen, including the way this is all organized. We're going to first review the need, and we've got great panelists that will give perspective: criminal, civil, private practice need. And then we're going to move into how do we first meet the acute need. And just a couple ideas. We've had some other ideas. Somebody had to cancel out this morning who was on the road. I hope they'll get in this afternoon to share a few more ideas of meeting the acute need. And then we're going to move over to the law schools, and we're going to be talking about, they'll be talking about meeting the acute and the chronic need. And then from there, we're going to go to creative ways to provide legal services, a panel doing that. And then finally, trying to reframe the way in which we as attorneys recruit. And that's going to be really fun to be able to talk about those things, because it's a new season for the way in which we recruit. As I've heard Marcy say, the first time I came to one of these meetings, Marcy said, there are 100 ideas and 100 ways this needs to be addressed. We're going to only be able to touch on about maybe 15 or 20 of those today. So the ideas that you have may not be covered today, but we're intentionally setting this up so there's going to be an hour for discussion over lunch that you connect with who you need to connect with to begin to get the ball rolling. As Dan has shared, we can do what we can do. And let's move a step in that direction. What an amazing story Rita's got, that she's up in one of the biggest oases in the state. So let's make some progress today.
All right, so we have the first panel, the need, so you guys take it away.
Good morning. Can you hear me back there? Yes. All right, thank you. I'm Mary Pollard. I am the Executive Director of the Office of Indigent Defense Services. And the Office of Indigent Defense Services is responsible for administering public defense for the state of North Carolina. Now, what is public defense? It is ensuring that every person who has a constitutional or a statutory right to counsel, but who can't afford to hire a lawyer, has a lawyer to represent them. And it's a lot more than just criminal cases. It's criminal cases, but it's also involuntary commitments. It's also petitions for termination of parental rights if they're initiated by the government, petitions for adjudication of a juvenile as delinquent, and more. So who provides public defense in North Carolina? We have a patchwork of systems right now in 39 counties, 19 judicial districts. We have a public defender office, a state-funded public defender office, counterpart to the district attorney's office, and those offices handle the bulk of cases with private assigned counsel handling conflicts. In the remaining 61 counties, the system relies solely on private assigned counsel, appointed counsel to take those cases. So that's a lot of counties and a lot of cases. You've heard about the need. I don't think I need to go over that, but yes, the stalwarts of our work in indigent defense are graying out and retiring and aren't being replaced in the rural areas especially. Now, IDS has a long-term plan, and I am really optimistic that we are going to make good progress on that very soon. We want to see the creation of public defender offices in every area of the state that needs one. And those offices would have to be supported by a network of private assigned counsel to handle conflicts. And, of course, we hope to see a healthy criminal bar in every county to handle retained cases, because if people can hire a lawyer, they should hire a lawyer, right? So we're going to make progress on that, but for this plan to be successful in the long term, we need to make sure we can recruit and retain lawyers in all 100 counties that are willing to do our work. It's a beautiful state, and I am optimistic that we can do this. The IDS, for the first time, the state bar, or the IOLTA program, funded a position for us to do training and also recruitment and retention. And Carla Huff, our coordinator, started in May. She's hit the ground running, and she has some great ideas. So, for example, for the first time, she's going to work with the chief public defenders and apply to the Golden Leaf Foundation to fund summer internships and try to get paid internships for law students to come to some of these beautiful locations and get a taste for what it's like. In the shorter term, though, we need all hands on deck to make sure that we have lawyers in the courtroom now. And the things we do today will help us lay the groundwork for a successful future. I don't want to sound too grim, but I do want to give you some context about the scope of the problem. So for example, in Vance County, just this past month, there were no lawyers available to take indigent cases for about 2 weeks. The judges, the clerks, IDS personnel scrambled to help try to find people from out of county to help out in Vance County. In Wayne County, this is the last fiscal year, there were 3 attorneys on the felony list. Almost 1,600 felonies were charged in that county. And remember, these folks do some retained work and they do work in other counties, so they are stretched really thin. Lenore County, 2 attorneys on the list, 988 felonies. Lee County, 2 attorneys on the list, 718 felonies. Unnamed Mountain County, about 6 months ago, the sole attorney on the misdemeanor list called me and cried because of the stress and the loneliness, and we talked about some things and tried to get some folks to come in from out of district to give them a break. Now, I want to close on a brighter note, which is that I think if all of the actors in the system come together to figure out some creative solutions, we're going to make this work. There's no one solution, but I'm going to give you one example. This is just a little tiny thing, an increment, right? A clinical professor at one of our law schools reached out last week after our Vance County outreach, and she wants to have a clinic to help cover cases in Vance County. It's a reasonable drive from the law school, that if we could work with those folks up there, if they're willing to put together some sort of, say, a session court for probation violations or for child support contempt, the clinic could cover that session court. And it's a little different from how they're doing things right now. We'll figure out something that would make sense. It's a great thing. It will solve a little bit of the problem, and it will give those law students exposure to practice up there. And maybe some of them will realize, hey, it's pretty nice. Maybe I should move up and hang out a shingle here or go to work up here. Nice people, good work, good clients. So I'm excited to hear from all of those today who have great ideas. And I did start out by thanking the chief and Marcy and all you folks for putting this together, especially Jimbo, who has so much energy, and I'm just grateful for his dedication to this because we need it bad. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. And I also want to echo Mary's thanks to everyone who has been leading this effort and convening us here this morning. I'm Jennifer Lechner. I'm the Executive Director of the North Carolina Equal Access to Justice Commission. We're a commission of the Supreme Court of North Carolina. Mary's given us a little bit of an overview on the criminal need, and I'm going to talk to you about the civil side of things and then turn it over to Liz Albritton, who is on the ground working and sees this every day as part of her work. But what we're really talking about here is supply and demand, and this is a different kind of supply and demand I'm going to talk to you about in lawyers in rural areas, but it's the civil legal needs that we are seeing in various jurisdictions. So I don't often encourage folks to take out their laptops or phones and look at them while I'm talking, but in this case, if you take away anything from my presentation today, I hope that you'll look at nclegalneeds.org. There we have all 100 counties' socioeconomic profiles, and it talks about the case filings in each county, and so you can really see the civil demand there and the poverty in particular, but also the eviction rate and some other socioeconomic statuses. So I hope that you'll take a look at that. In 2021, the Equal Access to Justice Commission published the first civil legal needs assessment in almost 20 years in North Carolina. And it had a couple of focuses. One was documenting the current resources and services available, and then the second part was understanding the gaps in services and what resources are needed to address the unmet legal needs. On the nclegalneeds.org website, we have the full executive summary, and as I mentioned, the county profiles. I'm not going to go into the entire report here. It was 368 pages. If you'd like me to send it to you, I'd be happy to share it. But I'm just going to go over some quick, fast facts here. We've got more than 2 million low-income North Carolinians who are eligible for the services of our legal aid providers. Nationally, we know that 71% of low-income families will experience at least one civil legal problems in a given year. About a third of low-income families will have 4 or more civil legal problems in a given year. 86% of these legal needs go unmet because there are limited resources for our civil legal aid providers. And then we talked a little bit about the legal deserts. We have one legal aid attorney for every 8,000 North Carolinians eligible for the services, and one private lawyer for every 367 North Carolina residents. So, we've got about 30,000 licensed attorneys in North Carolina. We've got about 2 million who are eligible for services, and we've got to figure out a way to work on that supply and demand problem. And I'm delighted to be at this event today where we can start to work on that, because the legal deserts issue is really an access to justice crisis as well. Some of the findings from the civil legal needs assessment is that what we know, certainly anecdotally, but is quantified it, legal aid providers have to turn away many eligible people who have meritorious cases because they simply don't have the resources to serve everyone. Family law, particularly custody proceedings, is the most mentioned area of need. And we see this down in our Wake County Legal Support Center. 70% of the folks who come into the Legal Support Center, it's only been open since January, it's already served over 3,500 people. 70% are there for a family law issue, and the vast majority of those are custody. The second most mentioned area of need is immigration. And then we know that funneling additional resources into routine practice areas like expunctions and traffic law can make a huge difference in the lives of people, particularly in rural areas where finding good jobs is often an issue and transportation is often an issue. 91% of clients named cost as a barrier. So this is something else that that we can work on. Lack of internet access. There's a lot of resources available in our rural areas. We often don't have broadband internet access. And the need for legal services for low-income families is growing, and poverty drives a large percentage of this need. So I'm going to hand it off now to Leslie.
Actually.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was so bad.
Good morning. My name is Ernie Lee. I'm the district attorney for Onslow, Sampson, Duplin, and Jones counties. Two of my counties are actually red on that chart I saw. Duplin and Jones. I've been with the DA's office for 36 years. I am a career prosecutor. I've been this for a long time. The ADA is 24 years, the DA over 12 years. I do want to give a shout out to an individual over there across the rooms, Colonel Kurt Warner. He was my commander when I was in the Army Reserve at Fort Bragg, and he was an absolutely great soldier, lawyer, and leader. It's great to be here this morning. It's just great to be here because, I like what the Royal Marine said. We got to do these incremental steps. We're not going to solve all these issues today, but we got to start somewhere. Today is the time to start. As you know, district attorneys are responsible. We have two constitutional duties in this state. One is to represent the state of North Carolina in the prosecution of criminal cases, and also to advise law enforcement. That's our second constitutional duty. There are 42 elected district attorneys in the state of North Carolina. I know two others are here right now, Jason Rainey and Mike Waters. It's good to have them here. We have about 677 assistant DAs, but I can tell you over the past year we've been short about 11.1% of ADAs. So when you talk about a legal desert in my district, we not only have a legal desert for defense attorneys, but also prosecutors. I know the average has been 11%. I've been down 25% in my district for the past year or more. So that's a lot. Right now, I'm allotted 20 assistant DAs from my 4 counties. The bulk of them are in Onslow County, because in case you don't know, we got this little Marine Corps base over there called Camp Lejeune, or Camp Lejeune as it's commonly known, and they give me a lot of business. So we stay very busy. But I have 12 of my assistant DAs assigned to Onslow County. And it's amazing what 40,000 Marines and their dependents can do. We stay quite busy there. But I can tell you that with 677 ADAs right now, as of just a few days ago, there were 62 unfilled ADA positions in the state. That is a lot. It's almost still 1 out of 10. In my district, I am down 4 out of 20. So that means we're operating at 75% capacity. I know in Sampson County, one of the counties that has business issues as well, we've not been fully staffed there since November 2022. We're working at 75%. In Duplin County, I've not been fully staffed since September 2021. With prosecutors, we're working at 75% right now. In Onslow County, we were down at 75%. We were down to 60% for 2 months. But we got it back up to 75%. And I guess one of the issues we're seeing, we're not receiving a lot of applicants. I used to have a stack of applicants that I would save them year to year because sometimes I couldn't interview everyone, but now we have none basically. So part of the solutions on this, some creative ideas we've come up with is first of all having paid internships. This past year, the Administrative Office of the Courts gave us money to do this. We had 53 paid interns in my office. In my district, the state. 2 of those were in my district. They were outstanding. We assigned them as second and third year law students to district court. They were excellent. I think it cost AFC was $6,000 for the 2L. It was $8,000 for the 3L. What an investment. Both of them are now interested in being prosecutors. I've just got to get them back though, to my district. Also, meet and greets the law schools. That is a tremendous asset for us. And I was told by Kimberly Spahus to give a shout out to Dean Davis over at North Carolina Central. I appreciate all you've done with your meet and greet. Also at Campbell University, I talked to Mallory this morning. I'm looking forward to working with her in the future. I know we have some prosecutor-focused courses at Central and at Campbell. That's what we need. Other ideas is, we've got to have some type of system to help these young lawyers who are interested in becoming prosecutors pay their school debt. Yes. You know, the starting salary for an assistant DA in the state of North Carolina is $47,482. The lowest paid among government attorneys in the state. One of the lowest in the nation. It is hard to attract someone, $47,000, that's also assistant public defender, same thing. It's hard to attract people when they come out of law school with an average debt of $150,000. And that's what we're facing right now. So maybe we have some type of program like we do with doctors that go to rural areas where we help take care of their school debt and have them commit to a certain number of years as a prosecutor or assistant public defender. Pay must be increased. We're seeking from the legislature to increase our allotments so we can compete more with the private defense attorneys who, and I know in my county, are hiring them at $60,000 and it's $47,000 in my district. So we've got to work on that. You know, the prosecutors are an integral part of the criminal justice system. It will not work without prosecutors. And people don't think about prosecutors unless you're a victim.
Yes.
But then suddenly when you're the victim, the prosecutor becomes one of the most important people in your life. And I deal with that a lot. Although I'm the district attorney, I still have an active caseload. I've tried and I've prosecuted a lot of murder cases. I've done 147 first-degree murder cases, which means there's been 147 families that I've dealt with as a result of those murder cases. And each of them also deserves competent, effective representation on behalf of the state of North Carolina. I would request the law schools emphasize that prosecution is a public service. You can truly make a difference. You can't change the world necessarily, but you can make a difference in at least one victim's life, or hopefully many victims' lives. And recruitment and retention of good prosecutors is necessary for the criminal justice system.
I can't speak in Oslo, can I?
I'll just say, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. This is the first step today. Thank you so much.
The only one that's been bugged. Welcome to the club.
I'm in very good company.
I might have to wing it without my slides. Those aren't mine.
I did not receive any slides.
Oh, shoot, I didn't know. That's okay. Yeah, that's all right. I'm used to winging it. I'm from legal aid. Thank you all so much for allowing Legal Services a seat at the table today to discuss this very important issue. My name is Leslie Albritton, and I'm the Chief of Staff for Legal Aid of North Carolina. And I want to start by saying that this is a topic that's really top of mind for me because for the past 19 years, I have practiced in some of those counties that are orange and red, and I also live in a rural community. So this is very important to me. I started out in our field office in Greenville as a staff attorney, and most recently I've been the project director for our disaster relief project, which focuses solely on disaster recovery in rural areas. For those of you who don't know about Legal Aid of North Carolina, we are uniquely situated to discuss this topic because we are the only civil legal nonprofit in North Carolina that serves all 100 counties in the state. And we do that with 450 staff members. Now, that makes us the third largest law firm in the state, depending on how you slice it. But there are 2 million people in North Carolina who qualify for our assistance. Every year, we receive around 400,000 calls to our central intake unit, which we also call our helpline, seeking assistance from Legal Aid of North Carolina. And last year, through direct representation, we were able to serve about 55,000 North Carolinians. I want to emphasize that that is one-to-one representation. That doesn't include the numbers for the people to whom we provided legal information or to whom we serve through our community education and outreach events. Now, we're proud of those numbers, but we know we have a lot more work to do given the number of eligible people in the state. Our typical clients come to us fleeing abuse. They come to us facing homelessness. They come to us with concerns about recent and unexpected unemployment or seeking sometimes life-saving medical benefits, access to other types of benefits, and concerned about their children's education. So how are we meeting the need? Well, I want to start by talking about the number of people who specifically live in rural communities in this state. There are about 3.5 million people in rural communities, and of those, about 600,000 live below 100% of the federal poverty guidelines. About 250,000 live below 50%. Now, those are people who are, for the most part, never going to have access to a private attorney to meet their civil legal needs. In 2022, we served roughly 14,000 people in rural communities, including rural legal deserts, by opening about 7,000 cases and closing about 7,000 cases in those communities. We have 162 staff members who live or work primarily in rural communities, and most of our offices are actually located in rural communities. And I'm going to end, like everyone else has done, on a positive note by mentioning that I think that legal services providers like Legal Aid of North Carolina and our sister organizations like PISCA are particularly well situated to address this issue because we are able to move away from the traditional one-to-one service model of providing legal services and to focus on some unique and creative solutions that provide service from one to many. And we're doing that through our pro bono projects, through our outreach, and every year we host numerous outreach and education events with our community partners. And because I used to wear a different hat recently as the director of disaster relief, I want to mention that that project in the past 6 months alone has conducted about 86 outreach and education events, and every single one of those took place in a rural community or a rural legal desert. And I want to close by saying, most excitingly, we're launching a new innovation lab. And I don't know if Cherie Gilchrist is here. If she is, I hope she'll wave. I think she's going to be here by lunchtime. Wonderful. Cherie is our Chief Innovation Officer, and the lab is her project. And she's actually the first Chief Innovation Officer for a legal services organization in the entire country. And the lab is going to focus 100% on how to address the need in rural legal deserts through a variety of different innovations, including a mobile intake unit and hopefully a rural innovation hub, and also through the modernization of our central intake unit or that helpline that I spoke about a minute ago, so that we can increase equity in the way that we deliver services in rural deserts. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Alan McCroy. I'm from Morganton, Burke County, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. I'm going to give you my perspective as a general practitioner in a small town. For those of you who know Burke County, it's in the western part of the state, just down I-40 between Hickory and Asheville. That's how we explain it to folks. But in Morganton, we have a a long, proud history of some really great lawyers in the state of North Carolina, and that's what attracted me to go practice there 32 years ago in 1991. My perspective on the need, I think, can best be summed up by last week I was in a middle of a closing argument in a particular case, and a colleague from Catawba County said, my young colleague over here, Your Honor, is going to argue X, Y, and Z. I'm still being called a young colleague, and I'm 58 years of age. So that made me really think, wow, we got to do something here. But I can tell you that I am also a state bar counselor. The district I represent is comprised of Burke, Caldwell, and Catawba counties. 2 of those 3 counties are legal deserts, including my own, Burke County. And I believe also, I think what Jimbo would say, the problem is not showing people the quality of life that they have if they come to live here. I couldn't imagine living anywhere else but where I live. I love it so much. It is really trying to show these law students how they can get past those first few years of trying to establish a practice. And I would give a little mea culpa, and I've been talking to some of my colleagues about this. For the first 10 years I practiced law in Burke County, I would say every year we would have 2 or 3 new lawyers come in. They were usually lawyers that were hired by firms, right, in our community. And as I've been telling some other 50-something lawyers who've been there quite some time, we're not holding up our end of the bargain. We need to be bringing in new lawyers and training them and teaching them and so forth, and helping them the first few years when they can really contribute to help us. It'll just take a little bit of time and a little bit of help, and we should be able to get there. The quality of life is just outstanding. The only difference I would say between me and Jimbo is I enjoy going to the grocery store also, but for the same reason you said, my wife will not go to the grocery store with me. She does not want to sit there for 15, 20 minutes while I talk to clients or talk to other people in our community. But she loves me very much, but nonetheless. But that also is why we love living there, too. Isn't that true, Jimbo? So I am looking forward to us having really robust ideas to try to not only find ways to have programs, these incubators, what Mark's doing down here is incredible. All those things, I'm so excited about all that. But also encouraging lawyers such as myself, let's get on board and start hiring some lawyers in our smaller communities. Thanks.
I think he just wanted to do that to you, Alan. I think you had enough. I do want to thank Alan. He's the chair of our Legal Deserts subcommittee, and I do want to thank him for all his hard work. So, moving right along, we are now going into the next panel discussion, meeting the acute need. How can we quickly and effectively increase the availability of legal services in underserved areas? So, Mark and Tom.
Great. I'm Mark Atkinson. I'll go first. I'll try to keep to my 5 minutes. But real quick, what I really appreciate, this is a big group with a lot of knowledge, a lot of expertise, covers a lot of areas. And the issues that we're talking about are going to require a lot of solutions, a lot of approaches. We talked about improvements to the court system, looking at regulatory reform, more money, funding. And what I'm focusing on are new business models. And that's what the Legal Incubator is all about. A little bit of my background. I am 59. I just turned 59 earlier this week, but I graduated from law school 3 years ago. I went to law school later in life, and there's some benefits to that, and there's some disadvantages. One, I don't know half of what you all are talking about, but it also gives me a certain naivete to kind of ask questions and say, can we do this differently? Can we innovate? And here's what in my old career, we did things like this. What about that? So that's where the Legal Incubator came from. I was inspired by what's going on in Texas, Chicago, and the Bay Area. They have 3 very robust legal incubators. And so what the Legal Incubator is, and I know you probably can't see this slide, but the point I want you to see, to the left is a circle, and those are lawyers, particularly lawyers in law school. And so the Legal Incubator, or the full name, the Incubator for Legal Practice and Innovation, ILPI, we have two perfect candidates that can participate in the program. Those that have just gotten out of law school with their passed the bar, or attorneys that have been practicing for 1, 2, 5, 10, 20 years, working for someone else and say, hey, I can do this myself. I just need a little bit of help in getting started. So those are our two kind of candidates. And so in law school, you go to in-house, you go to government, public interest, but you may want to, or you may need to start your own firm and go solo. And the incubator exists for those people, and also for those people that want to do their own thing. So the legal incubator is a 12-month program, so it's that bridge where you see the infant going from diapers to toddler to walking to running. So in the course of that year, the incubator is set up to try to provide a bridge, a platform of support, a supportive community that provides training, mainly focused on the business side of running a law firm. Being a new lawyer myself, I'm not going to advise folks on the nuances of bankruptcy law and anything like that. That's where we need mentors. I'll get to that in a second. So this 12-month program, we have access to Lexis. Lexis gives us, because I'm a nonprofit 501c3, we have access to LexisNexis for a full year, so the participants get everything Lexis provides. Clio is provided for free. We have access to free CLEs and other vendors as well. There's periodic lunch and learns where they get exposed to IT issues, business issues, marketing issues, strategic planning. Camille is one of our lunch and learn participants. Catherine Sanders Reach is one of them as well. So we're bringing experts to connect with them, to give them connections that may help them now or may help them later as their law firm grows. And the trajectory of these law firms, solo or small law firms, is to serve the missing middle. We acknowledge that legal aid has served a certain population of people, and there's plenty of law firms that serve a higher income bracket, but there's a big middle of clients, customers, that may think they can't afford an attorney or may think they don't need an attorney. But I believe it's possible with the right business model, low overhead, to make a living, to do well, and to do good in your community. So again, you can't see that. That was a slide just to show what the program looks like. And then this was my flyer, where I'm recruiting. I'm kicking off the 4th cohort. Rita was in the 2nd cohort. So these are some of the faces. There's Rita there towards the right in the middle. These are the folks that were in the last couple of cohorts. I've had 21 attorneys over the last 3 years. I'd love to have 15, 20 in this 4th cohort that kicks off September 21st. So what do I need? I need people like this to participate, either right out of law school, pass the bar, as they just found out on Monday or Tuesday. I remember that feeling, you probably do too. Be people like this. We need mentors. Sounds like Alan's willing. To coach them on the substantive law issues. And we need a little bit of money, not a lot of money. I'm a low overhead operation. But as we grow, we're going to need more support to be financially sustainable. The main thing is people, candidates that can be a part of this program to serve their community, to do well, and to do good.
Thanks, Lon. Hello, everyone. Tom Moncussi. I'm a North Carolina attorney, CPA, and 10 years ago, a little over 10 years ago, I had the crazy ideas. I was in private practice, helping all these other professionals, dentists, CPAs, doctors, planning for their succession. I thought, who's helping lawyers do this? And so I founded the Law Practice Exchange. And the Law Practice Exchange was founded to help buy, sell, and value law firms, to essentially create succession strategies for owners of law firms, small ownership groups, solos to small partnerships, really, have an exit strategy, but allowing the value that they build to be transferred to the next generation. And so had that crazy idea, started doing it, and then went and saw my friend Camille Stella, Lawyers Mutual, thinking, well, if she runs me out of the building, it's maybe not a good idea. And fortunately, she said, this is great. And so that's really what kicked us off years ago, is we started doing programs trying to get to lawyers to say, this is an option. It's maybe not the option for everybody, but it is an option. And that's really where we're focused today. So the Law Practice Exchange 10 years later helps lawyers and law firms across the country. We have a couple opportunities in Canada, But our goal is really to be searching and matching lawyers of different generations so that the value that's been built in one can be moved on to another, and to essentially create that continuation strategy for the law firm, but allowing the owner, as I kind of use the analogy a lot, to kind of step off the train when they want to go, but the train keeps going, and that's the law firm and everything else. So we do a lot of search and matching. We do valuing and structuring of these deals, so actually putting together the financial metrics, putting together timelines for what is it really going to take to do this, and then we build out attorney transition plans. And so really that comes down to a lot of different firms on the mentorship that's needed, the management, great operations like legal incubators and others can really shorten those and make those work better. But overall, it's how to transition what's been built and kind of carry forward. So overall, our goal is to have attorneys think of this as an option. There's challenges, but our goal of doing it is across the country right now, we're working on recruiting attorneys. We manage a database of 1,000 or 4,000 attorneys right now that come to us seeking these opportunities. So they're younger and next generation attorneys. Right now, just as a marketplace, that's outpacing our selling opportunities. That we have more buyers coming to us, 5 to 1. So that's a good sign. That means this next generation is looking for business opportunities, right? They're looking for, potentially not to start from scratch always, but to look at this as saying, here's a proven model, but we got to get them matched in the right markets, geographic markets, practice areas, everything else. But overall, as we do that, our goal is to make more matches, right? And that's really our focus going forward is how do we scale to grow that database, to do more, use the process, the proven concepts that we've had to really carry that forward. For us, it's about becoming deal intermediaries, advisors on how to build out these plans, how to hand the baton is really what I would say is, and that's a challenge because especially when we talk about communities, a lot of the clients and the ongoing aspect come from those personal relationships. And those aren't a throw the keys and walk out the door. Those are again, pass the baton over time, transition, bring them up, have them intern with these firms, have them then enter into a succession strategy that really works for it. So there's obviously some challenges of getting the younger generation to go to certain communities, but we've really focused on it. Even I think Julie Beaver sat on a panel on one of our first programs, and there was 15 lawyers that said, hey, look, I've tried to hire my successor, and they come and they leave. I think our model was more of don't just hire an attorney and then expect them to be your successor. Hire your buyer. Really hire that person for the purpose of being in succession. Change the interviewing, change the message, change the plan of how they're going to come in and join you, not just to be an associate, but they are truly your successor, and that's the message. That's when you talk to the law schools, that's what you're looking for as compared to just somebody else. And overall, our goal is if we can do that more, if we can get more of scale of the database, we can truly do more matches, build more tools and resources, which I know is why everybody's here, to make these matches happen. The opportunities may look different, like the business opportunity I think that's been mentioned, the structure may look a little different in certain communities, but we hopefully can kind of continue to serve that need. Right now, we don't have a lot of new lawyers coming out buying law firms, so we'd love to change that. And hopefully we can do that and help be part of this movement to do that going forward.
Thank you.
What we're going to do is right now we're talking about how to meet the acute need, and we actually I put Dolph Mintz further down on the program, finding the incentive and reframing the conversation through recruiting. Dolph, if you should have a seat. Is there a seat there? Do you see a seat for Dolph? Happy to sit wherever. Yeah. It's on that side. There it is over there. Yeah, just sit down right there where Kevin was, and you can speak from there. Dolph, just sit down. All right. So Dolph has kind of come up with an idea about how to meet the acute need, because right now we're talking about how do we meet the acute need that we're trying to address now. How do we stop the bleeding? As one judge said, how do we get bodies in the courtroom so that good bodies in the courtroom, not just bad, get good bodies in the courtroom to help move things on. So, Dolph, if you'll go on and address you got 5 minutes, address your idea of the, and he was over on the back page, the 10 client challenge. Dolph,
it wasn't my idea, it was Jimbo's idea.
Anyway,
you told me at the swimming pool. Anyway, so I guess my name's Dolph Mintz. I'm from Kinston, East Shelby in our district. It's the 8th Judicial District, and Kinston, Lenore County, eastern part of the state, about an hour and a half east of here. Jimbo is kind of a mentor of mine. I've been practicing about 12 years. He kind of convinced me to hang a shingle in Kinston 12 years ago. I don't do court-appointed work. I did it when I first started, and I would take my cases over to Jimbo's house, and he taught me how to handle cases in district court and superior court, and I just would try to do the right thing for people. And that worked out for me. I quit, I guess, doing court-appointed work probably 7 years ago or something like that. I have been in superior court, I guess, in the last 5-6 years, and it just, I see these lawyers that are in our district that I'm not familiar with, and I know they're coming from a long ways away. They're trying to service the need, I guess, because a lot of our local lawyers aren't willing to do any of the court-appointed work, myself included. And one of the I shared an office space with a gentleman, and I mean, he's a good friend of mine, and he said, hey, you make more money if you don't do any court-appointed work. And so I quit doing it and probably made more money. And it's not really about money though. I mean, it's really not at this point. I mean, our district's real bad on not having any lawyers who are local who get appointed cases. At least that's a problem that I see. And they get lawyers from 2.5 hours away. That lawyer probably has a crazy number of cases. And it's hard for him to get in touch with his clients, and he's all over the place, and he's trying cases in 5 different districts, and there's just no possible way for him to really know everything about a certain criminal case. And for that client, that criminal case is really important. And if he's got 500 of them, it's hard for every one of them to be important for each of those defendants. So Jimbo, obviously, like I said, he said something to me in the pool the other day about it, and we had a Lenore County Bar Association meeting, I guess, last week, and Judge Amanda Pates, our senior resident Superior Court judge, and I went to her office and talked to her, and I was like, Judge, I think it'll be more coming from you. Why don't you, just kind of tell the defense bar or the bar in general about the problem we're having with a lack of, I guess, competence / somewhat experienced lawyers who are kind of learned how to do it the right way and would call their lawyer or call their clients back and would do the things that every person who's a defendant just, half of them just wants you to call them back. I mean, and that's probably the biggest problem that the state bar hears is I can't ever get hold of my lawyer. He never calls me, or he never calls me back. So the judge, she's in need of some lawyers, and basically she got up and she spoke at the bar meeting, and it was heartfelt, and she was passionate about it, and we kind of had this in mind, but I was willing to do 10 felony cases I don't know what the hourly rate is now, but $65, $75, whatever it is. And yeah, it's not going, 10, just by me doing 10 is not going to do, it'll help. But we've got 4 other guys, I think, that are doing 10. So 50 might put a dent into some of the need for the competent lawyers who are willing to take on some cases for people in Lenore County. We got 100 counties, and I'm not gonna become, they know this, and this is probably only to put a Band-Aid on it kind of situation, frankly. It's not addressing the long-term problem, most likely, but it may address the short-term problem. And I think Judge Pate, and I was in the admin court yesterday, and she was coming up to me and a couple of the other lawyers who are willing to do it. And she's, I'm not saying she's handpicking the ones that she gives us, but she's, I guess she's not giving us real bad frequent flyers that are real bad and everybody knows they're real bad to get. I mean, I'm not saying she's cherry picking them, but she's having us, she's appointing us people in felony cases that we're hopeful will not be crazy, real problematic. And if they deserve a trial, we'll be the ones to tell them we need to try the case. Or if we think the right thing to do, or if I think the right thing to do is to, try to negotiate a proper plea with them, with the DA, then we'll do that. But I think most importantly, they just want someone who will call them back, who will be there for them, who will advocate for them, and the guy's practice is not too far away from the county where he's going to have to find his case.
Welcome to the club, Doctor. That's great.
But anyway, that's about all. I mean, again, we've got 4 lawyers or 4 or 5 of us, I think, doing it, so that'll take care of, I guess, 50 clients, and we'll see what happens.
I think it's important. I mean, obviously, we're trying to find ways to help the acute need right now. I think it's awesome that you're doing that and that other members of your bar are doing that. And I've seen people writing this down, jotting down. That's one of the purposes of today, to come up with some ideas for both the immediate need and for long term. So thank you. We appreciate you doing that. We are very blessed in North Carolina to have some awesome law schools here. And we're also blessed that we have some of the representatives from some of those schools here today. So I'm just going to turn that over. I don't know if you guys know who's going to go first or second or third or whatever, but.
Can I nominate Rob Gerald? Sorry, would you be mad at me? But I think that might be an interesting perspective. Or would you want someone else to?
Sure.
Okay, sorry. Hi, I'm Kelly. Rob Gerald's a student, so I think that might be really current to Carolina law. So I would love to maybe kick off our discussion with a student's perspective, and then you can jump in. Sorry, Rob, we did not plan that.
Dan Hodger-Smith is the reason I'm at Carolina law right now, so I guess I'll go first.
Okay, you owe me. No, I'm just kidding. He does not. He has a wonderful son.
Somebody's got to go first. Thank you for doing that.
So I'm Rob Gerald. I'm a 2L at Carolina Law, and I'm a double tardio, which means that I went to UNC for undergrad, where I was a business major and graduated in 2019. After undergrad, I worked at a small private equity firm in DC, and there were 4 of us, 3 partners and myself. And I was the youngest person there by about 35 years. And so coming into law school after that, I noticed a lot of similarities between the business program and the law program. And that is, there's a lot of pressure to get an internship this summer after your 2L year, because internships turn into job offers, and job offers pay student loans. So after Jimbo asked me to speak, I started speaking with some of the 1Ls, 2Ls, and 3Ls at the law school. And I think you pick a random 3L and ask them what they're going to do after graduation. Odds are they'll name the firm or the employer that they had their internship at. Why? Because it makes a lot of practical sense to take a job that's offered after an internship. It's a bird in the hand that also pays you. So I had said a lot of stuff when I heard that there was a buzzer, so. But yeah, if you had asked me in 2017 what I wanted to do after graduating undergrad, I would have told you investment banking at a big bank, because that's who was recruiting. And there didn't seem to be many other options. So if you go and ask a random 1L or 2L what they want to do after graduating law school, they'll probably either say big law or big public interest, because that's who's recruiting. And those are sort of the 2 big routes that I think most law students take. Fortunately, I didn't end up at a big bank.
And I was at a small firm where I got to see the value of working under experienced folks every day, meeting with clients, and really getting engaged. So when I met Jimbo after my 1 year, I'm hearing about all the benefits of working in a small town, and I thought, that's great, because I'd already experienced a lot of that, getting hands-on experience right from the start. So my only question was, why am I not hearing about these internships? And the answer was, there's not many internships available. And so I guess I'm here to tell you that we should have some more internships. It's really hard to convince someone to move to a small town that they've never lived in before, after they've been established somewhere else. It's even harder to convince someone to turn down a job offer at a big firm or a big public interest organization, because that's a high risk move. It's much easier to show law students the benefits of living and working in a small town, and to do so on a low risk basis. And so, having spoken with other students, I found that the small town internships would not be a hard sell. They kind of sell themselves. Many students choose one of those two big groups because they want a job, and again, that's who's recruited. And so many students end up in these jobs even if it's not a great fit. Small firms, small towns offer a lot, and the ability to sort of jump in and start working with clients on a wide range of practice areas, setting your own hours and learning from experienced attorneys is the value proposition. That's one of the reasons many folks go into the big public interest groups, is to get the experience, even if they don't plan to stay. So the small firms and small towns I've found offer the best of sort of both groups. You get the job security and staying power of the big law, and you get the hands-on experience and the community engagement of public interest. And maybe you won't make the big firm money, but the value you get from the experience, I think, more than makes up for that. And I think a lot of other law students would agree. So there's a solution, I think. If we want law students in small towns, and we want to compete with the big firms, we got to show small town internships. And I'm really optimistic that we can make that a reality. Thanks for asking me to speak to you about it.
Can y'all hear me? My name is Mallory Underwood, and I have a background in private practice at a civil litigation firm in Raleigh, and currently serve as the Director of Career and Professional Development at Campbell Law School. And before I get started, I just want to say thank you to Rob for sharing. I think that there's a lot of power in hearing from a student, and I think that I'll sort of just dovetail a little bit on what he said and say it's really important to take the student's perspective into consideration with all of this, and it's fantastic that that y'all are having that opportunity. And so thank you for being here, Rob. And thank you, Chief Justice and Jimbo, for inviting me to be here as well. For Campbell, I think this issue of sending students out into small communities really resonates because our law school has always had a tradition of producing service-oriented lawyers who graduate and disperse throughout North Carolina into these communities, in addition to placing students in all different types of practice, large firms, mid-sized firms, lots and lots of students in Raleigh and the larger communities for us, as well as everybody else, as the statistics from earlier today bear out. But the actual numbers and percentages, while they vary from year to year, they stay pretty consistent that we have a tradition of students who come to our law school and really want to go back to their own small town communities, or they want to, or at least are open to being placed in those types of communities when they graduate. So clearly law schools are going to be a big part of the equation in addressing the issue, since that's where all the future lawyers are coming from. And for us, and kind of given our background and the data about where our students go, the big two questions for us are how can we be intentional about continuing what we're already doing to support students who want to work in small communities after graduation and who are continuing to do that. And then how can we reach students who may not have considered those areas for a variety of reasons, the ones that Rob mentioned and maybe others as well, or help students who have considered small towns and ruled them out for reasons that might have solutions when we have these kinds of conversations. For us, one tangible step that we took last spring that we felt was really, really valuable was we had a small town practice panel, and it was extremely well attended and wound up being very successful by a number of measures. At law schools, we have a lot of panels all the time, and many of you all have probably participated on them before, and they're valuable for a lot of reasons. But one of the things that I thought was really exceptional about this panel was because we knew that there were a lot of really significant initiatives in the works around this issue is really important. It was, we really wanted to make the most of this opportunity. We spent a lot of time being really, really intentional, talking to the students about what are some of the barriers and what are some of the reasons why you might want to go to a practice like this, and really being very thoughtful about what our panelists would speak to and making sure that there were panelists with Jimbo's amazing help who represented a lot of very different aspects of practice and could speak to all these really diverse issues with our students. The panelists came and they did a fantastic job of painting a picture of what a small town practice is, but also addressing a lot of the really micro issues that law students have. They're maybe different than the issues that lawyers necessarily think about, but are things that when you're young and you're looking at your whole career ahead of you and you're thinking about going to a place you don't know anything about, what really matters to you, what's important. Some of them are things that you would naturally think of, and some of them are things that maybe wouldn't necessarily be on our radar unless we had gotten that information and feedback from the students and prepared the panelists to address some of those issues. This fall, we're hosting another small town practice panel, and we'll engage an even broader cross-section of attorneys from throughout the state, and are really looking forward to the potential impact that that may continue to have. In addition to that, because of the nature of our law school and the fact that we already have a lot of students who are interested in either going back out into small town practice because of their own experiences growing up in those towns, or potentially even starting their own firms in those towns, we're really excited to be partnering with student leaders who already have kind of a loose plan in place and have identified students who are interested in potentially hanging out their own shingle. And we are going to be partnering with the SBA to support a student-led plan that's very robust and going to be designed to create a series of programs to help students who want to get started with their own firm when they graduate. Some of those students may not go to small communities, but a lot of them will. So we're really excited to be able to partner in that way with what is already happening among the students. We've been really encouraged by student engagement around this issue, and there's just a few thoughts that we have that this group can maybe help with that we can allow us to do more, and I'll tell you more about that later in question.
Nice handoff. Hi, everyone. My name is Kelly Podger-Smith. I'm the Senior Associate Dean at UNC School of Law. I have a couple bullets and also will welcome questions at a later time, including, before I forget, Ernest, I have an idea for you that we can talk about later. I echo everything that Mallory and Rob have said. In terms of engaging with our students, what I've loved hearing this morning is all the stuff about innovation and hubs, and those are words and concepts that resonate with our students, right? They want to get on the ground floor. They want to be there. There's an entrepreneurial spirit, I think, in this generation of students that is, that I don't have someone in my body that could even begin to think about. But they want to change things. They want to be a part of a movement. And so that's something to keep in mind as we're talking about this issue, and really sort of put a fun, innovative spin on it. I mean, I hate that word, but so on that note, when we're creating opportunities, we also have a lot of students that are very passionate about serving underserved populations, right? So continuing that message. What is hard, and I'm just going to go ahead and maybe name the elephant in the room, it's convincing someone to go both to a small town and to a private sector firm with the limitations on the compensation and with the debt and everything that we've already been talking about. So opportunities for fellowships, nonprofits, things that we've already started conversations about, that really will resonate, at least with the students in Carolina law. Opportunities to at least try to go be in these communities, maybe you hook them, right? I 800,000 years ago, I had to teach for America. I went to a rural community in Louisiana, and I didn't stay, but I learned a lot about the community there, and it's something that will always stay with me. So that's the idea of when we're bringing students into our sort of legal deserts to create these oases. And when you do think in terms of the nonprofit and hubs and things like that, that allows us to do things that we might not be able to do in terms of partnerships with private firms. Nonprofit government type work opens up opportunities for our LRAP, our loan repayment assistance program, that right now would not extend into a private sector practice. It opens opportunities for fellowships and even other funding that we can help pursue. So those are just things to keep in mind. Two other notes that are just things that I've been thinking of. Certainly the clinical thing, I think there's opportunities there. In nonprofits, open up our externship program. A colleague of ours that is not here has mentioned tapping into either retired lawyers or soon-to-be retired lawyers. All this talk about votes from Jimbo, I was like, you get someone in a larger market who is looking to slow down, but you don't have the issues of them not knowing, right? And they can be both the mentor and eventually, after every couple tries, we'll get the new lawyer to come work with the retiring, phasing out lawyer in these communities. So if you could create almost like a retired lawyers corps that was going to go work in some of these communities, and again, not my idea. If you want to know who thought of it, you can ask me later. And then finally, something that I just thought about today, and some of you may have heard me talk about this. I've worked in different aspects of law school administration, including admissions. And I've long found law school pre-law advising to be somewhat lacking, right? Those of us who work in law schools get a lot of folks who come to law school with one idea, and a reality is very different in terms of lots of different options. So if in these local communities and partnering with law schools and with not only our career sides of the house, but our admission sides of the house, creating pipeline opportunities, talking to students in high school, talking to students that are already involved in 4-H, all the community organizations, like your student leaders that are already emerging in your communities. Bring law school folks to tell them what it takes to go to law school. And they could, I don't care if they come to my law school, they can go to any of our law schools, but we're creating lawyers that might want to then go back into those communities, really starting, again, undergrad, high schools, community colleges, those types of things. And again, I'd love to create and help be a partnership for that. And I get a buzzer, so we're gonna talk.
Hello everyone, my name is Kissy Davis. I serve as the Associate Dean of Clinical Legal Education and Experiential Learning at North Carolina Central University School of Law. I'm also a proud alum of North Carolina Central University School of Law, and I'm also from a small town in eastern North Carolina. Justice Newby and my good best friend Jimbo, thank you so much for this opportunity. I think that this is a wonderful discussion. I think the common thread that we've all heard is that legal deserts can be a legal oasis, but the optics of that opportunity must be attractive. North Carolina Central University School of Law has a mission of providing a quality education to students from these underrepresented populations. And the clinical legal education program, of course, mimics our mission by providing services to those schools and to those communities. I've heard a lot. I just wanted to reach out across the aisle there when they were having the discussions, or please as to the need, because there are common concerns in the things that we are currently doing. As my colleague has mentioned, I think that first you have to go back and you have to start with pipelines. And I wouldn't even say high school, I would say middle school. You have to introduce these students to the optics in these particular communities. That's how I was introduced to the law. That's how several of my colleagues, including my best friend, who is also from Eastern North Carolina, who's now a Superior Court judge, was introduced to the law. You have to introduce them to these things because they don't see lawyers in their communities. All right? That's number one. Number two, when you introduce these students, you have to actively recruit these students. Actively recruit these students with the understanding that, look, this would be a great opportunity for you to come back and serve those who have served you. Provide schools with the money that they need to do the work that they need to do. Not only am I a proud alum of North Carolina Central University School of Law, I'm also a proud alum of UNC Chapel Hill. And I can truly say, in being a student and being a professor, there are disparities as it relates to finances. When Mary Pollard was speaking to you earlier, the school that she was speaking about was North Carolina Central University School of Law, because a clerk from Vance County called the professor that is over at the criminal defense clinic pleading for someone to come and help. And so what we did was we rolled up our sleeves. We called Judge Mitchell, who's also on the IDS Commission, who's also an alum, and said, okay, what is it that we need to do? But administratively, what I had to do is think of the optics of the opportunity, because we do not have the bodies within the law schools to create the experiential learning opportunities to provide our students where they can go back and they can really get a one-on-one, boots on the ground experience in these smaller communities. Make these places attractive. Mr. Lee talked about the different symposiums. I'm big on collaborations. I'm big on partnerships. We are having different collaborations, not only with the North Carolina Conference of District Attorneys, a summit on October 17th, but we're also going to have one with public defenders in the spring. We have to bring these opportunities and introduce these opportunities to our students, and that's something that I think that we have an obligation to do. Now, let's go back to our foundation. I recently, I think last year, produced a scholarship piece where within the context of the piece, I talked about the necessities of apprenticeships. That is how we started off. I think that if a doctor has to go through clinics before they start opening people up and giving people advice, we need to do the very same things. There are a lot of students that come out that don't know how to practice law. That is our obligation. That is our responsibility to make sure they have the foundation to practice law. So I'm a big proponent of experiential learning, a big proponent of apprenticeships. ABA 303B does not do enough in requiring that our students have 6 hours of experiential learning before they graduate from school. Now, what can we do as attorneys once we get our license? As we have CLE hours, they are required. I think you should have pro bono hours that are required each year for each attorney. And if you do not want to complete your pro bono hours in these rural communities, put your money where your mouth is. For each hour that you are required to do, you have to pay that in your billable rate to a fund that is set up that will go to these rural counties or organizations that will assist with this need. Also, another idea is, and I'm going to finish this, the interest on IOTA accounts. Let's increase the interest on IOTA accounts and establish other opportunities, other organizations where we can go in and service these people. There is needs for boots on the ground, and I am certain that the people in this room can make it happen. Once again, thank you, Justice, and thank you, Jim.
Hi everyone, I'm Francie Scott. I'm the Assistant Dean for Career and Professional Development at Wake Forest Law School. And in preparation for today, just to kind of get a sense of the scope of the problem, I went back and looked at some of our employment statistics, and the data is pretty clear. You know, at Wake Forest, we keep about half of our class each year in the state of North Carolina. About 50% go out of state, about 50% stay in state. Of those students, of those graduates, about in the last year, the class of 2022, 49.5% of them went to Charlotte. 20%, about 20% in Winston, in Greensboro, and about 10% in Raleigh and Durham. So other cities in North Carolina, 15% of half of our graduating class went somewhere other than Charlotte, Winston, or Raleigh. And our class is generally about 160, 170 students. So you're talking about 16 to 20 lawyers going somewhere else in North Carolina. That is a small number. That is you know, in terms of moving the needle, I agree, like incremental change is really necessary, because I don't think that we're going to see a sudden influx when you look at that data. So at Wake Forest, I think we're a little unique in North Carolina. We have a first-year class in professional development where we work with the students to consider, giving them the opportunity to consider career paths from their entry into law school. We go through a process of self-assessment, career exploration. We present kind of different career paths, different options for lawyers, and try to give some training around the professional skills, the relationship skills that are critical for legal practice. I think getting them in early, getting to the students early is critical because, to echo Rob, what we have seen is that students really like certainty and they really like visibility. So to give them an opportunity in their first year of law school to actually kind of be aware that there are opportunities outside the big firm path, outside, the big city path is really critical. This fall, we're going to bring, similar to Campbell, we're going to bring a small town practice group to one of our career panels, which we have a series of for our first year students to talk more about, the different opportunities that are available outside of the traditional path. I do think that, framing the message is critical. I think our students, if we just welcomed a new crop of 1Ls, and if you ask them why they came to law school, almost universally they will say, well, I want to help people. I want to be part of something bigger than myself. And so, that messaging around, I took some notes about kind of doing good, being well, being part of the community. That resonates with our students. That's a big part of the ethos of Wake Forest is community and collaboration. So, that message does matter, but we just need to get to them early and target those students who, if there are students that come from a small town, target the low-hanging fruit so that they understand the opportunities available. And I also just want to echo another statistic that resonated with me was the national data on law graduate employment outcomes. Of about 39,000 graduates in the class of 2022, 161 went into solo practice nationwide. So, as has been said, they need some support. They need mentoring. They need that, medical residency. Because I don't think that's a failure on the part of law schools. I think that's just a sense that the students need a little bit more before they can just jump right into practice. So the value of those sort of innovations are really critical. I also think, like you said, student loans are an issue. And when what I've experienced with my primarily 20-something student body is that they look at a number, which is their student loan debt, and they look at another number, which is the salary, and they compare and they say, well, I have to do this. And so some education around loan repayment opportunities, some financial literacy, frankly, is also something that we're exploring adding at Wake Forest. And I think I'm ahead of my time.
Barely
Thank you, Francie. I'm Mark Martin, founding dean at High Point University School of Law. I personally taught at NC Central, UNC, and Duke, and I've spent significant time at all of our law schools, and they're all amazing. And we're just hoping we can join that community of law schools and very much looking forward to it. Just to break it up, I do have a few PowerPoints if they come up. I'm not sure. One more time. Okay.
I don't know why it's not doing.
Well, that's okay. It's not a fail. While we're waiting, I want to recognize Wes Jones, who's with me from High Point Law 2. And I became a refugee from Raleigh after 26 years, 3 months, and 2 days on the bench. But it enabled me to see, once I was banished to the Outer Banks, I know, pretty good place to hang out, but somebody has to do it. But it enabled me to see some of the real challenges that we have in some of the counties that are adjacent to the Outer Banks. Battered spouses with no one to turn to. Abused children with no one to give them a helping hand. So I really want to commend Chief Justice Newby, our State Bar President and officers, Jimbo, and everyone, the State Bar staff that has convened this meeting today. The time is now, and we're the ones that can make a difference. So at High Point Law, we all know the problem exists. I think former ABA President Judy Perry Martinez probably said it best. Nearly every state in the nation has large stretches of rural areas and counties where there are few, if any, lawyers. And this lack of legal advocacy materially interferes with access to basic needs such as housing, medical care, and child support. In our own state, Hyde and Jones County each have 5 attorneys. Camden, Gates, and Terrell, 2 attorneys. And I remember when Terrell only had 1. So I think this chart reinforces what Brian and Francie have shared. If you see the concentrations there, it's almost all Raleigh, Charlotte, and then moving over on I-40 into the Triad, and of course a little concentration in Wilmington. So Bloomberg said it best. Law schools have a key part to play here. We can train lawyers, both educational component and experiential component, to help with this pressing issue. First, we can educate on the legal oasis issue. We can host rural lawyers to bring them in. Lawyers like Alan and Jimbo and others that have made this work, and not only made it work, but have had a meaningful professional career. We can offer materials in our admissions offices, in our career placement offices, and we can really begin to show prospective students and students looking for jobs that these are amazing career path opportunities. We can include presentations during first year orientation, which we'll be doing at High Point, and I would encourage each of my colleagues to do at their law schools. And then we turn to internships, externships, and experiential learning. And here we can leverage strategic partnerships with judges and lawyers. I've added over 70 wonderful jurists and lawyers that are helping me at High Point. They're on the website. You can take a look. We will educate students expressly about the rural oasis opportunities. Our clinics will be general and veterans clinic, but we know the rural interface in both those areas that we'll be a part of. In terms of curriculum, we're going to offer courses that are very critical to our rural areas. And I think that will be helpful as well in the educational component. In terms of equipping students, we're going to try to give students a sense of how working at a smaller practice in a rural area is going to be different than a big city firm. You're going to have less oversight. We're also going to try to emphasize developing empathy with vulnerable populations, understanding the plight of our rural poor. And finally, we want our lawyers that go to rural areas to see that they're going to be embracing leadership roles in their community. That is my own time. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tim. I did not know how to do it.
I have another member of my club. Okay, all right, guys. Thank you, everybody, so much. Great information. We're now to our last panel before lunch. So, creative ways to provide legal services.
I'll be quick because I know we want to eat. Thank you for having me. I'm frankly honored to be here speaking with all of you and sharing my time with Sarah Beth, who is honestly a leader in this field. I run Bold City Legal Services. It's a nonprofit law firm that, as you might guess, is located in Durham, North Carolina. And what we address is the gap between free legal services like Legal Aid, Justice Matters, Disability Rights North Carolina, and traditional firms, because typically the income cutoff for free legal services is very low. It's $11 an hour, $12 an hour in a lot of cases. So people cannot afford to go to a traditional firm and pay, $8,000, $10,000 retainer to obtain child support for custody education. 92% of low and middle income people report not being able to afford enough or any legal representation or services, and that's about a majority of people statewide and nationally. That is a national statistic. I don't want to overwhelm everyone with numbers because I know we went to law school because we don't like math, but most people who are low and middle income report having one or multiple legal issues per year, and it substantially impacts their life, meaning that it's causing financial distress, it's causing them to lose sleep, it's affecting their personal relationships. And so this really is an endemic problem that we're facing across this state. The areas that need the most services are family law, employment law, and tenancy, which is mostly issues of habitability or evictions. So what we do, Sarah Beth and I both at our firms, is we have sliding scale fees for legal representation and services, meaning that the less people make, the less that we charge. And we serve people who make up to 400% of the poverty rate, which that's probably too small, but I'm happy to send you my slides or refer you to my website where that information is. Let me get back to your slides. Yeah, that's gonna be quick, give you some time. Yeah, there you go.
Hi everyone, I'm Sarah Beth Withers. I am in Washington, North Carolina on the beautiful Pamlico River. I run Interbanks Legal Services, which is a sliding scale firm. And we service District 2, which is Beaufort, Martin, Hyde, Terrell, and Washington counties. I started Interbanks because I wanted to address a single issue that I saw initially, which was pro se bankruptcy filings. It's a crazy idea. People can't afford to pay a bankruptcy attorney because they're filing bankruptcy. Yeah. So we've had a lot of pro se filings, and it's impossible. I think the statistic is like 98% of pro se filings get dismissed in bankruptcy court. It's impossible to get through it. So that's all I wanted to do. And then the community called me, meaning the nurses, the doctors, or not the doctors, the physician's assistants sometimes, but the teachers and servicemen that could not afford traditional rates in our rural counties because they went from a 2-person household to a 1-person household, and they had multiple children, and they just could not afford to get divorced, which is also a little crazy. So we now, it's not just me doing bankruptcy now. I have 2 other full-time attorneys, and we kind of cover the gamut with divorces, family law, bankruptcy, guardianships, probate, and now immigration law. So the question is, what is Lo Bono and how it can help here? So typical markers of a sliding scale firm, or it's also known as Lo Bono, is we are organized as a 501c3. But we are not limited by the LSC like legal aid, so we don't have to cap off at 125% of the poverty level. We can go all the way up to 400% of the poverty level to offer rates that are affordable. It's a great way. We can charge. I think that's often a misconception. You're a nonprofit, how in the world can you charge? We can charge for our services, and so the rates can fluctuate based on that income and household size. Our firm uses the AOC indigency form to set our rates, so people come in and they show us what their assets and their income is and their household size, and then they provide a little backup information like a pay stub or a bank statement, and so then we put them on a rate. How is it different from legal aid? It's sort of a trick question. We actually are legal aid under the IRC. We are providing a legal aid service to our community. Just the difference is we aren't capped. So we do charge fees, but we can also be a mixed funding source. So we can receive donations, we can receive grant funds, and charge fees. So it can be mixed services, which is really helpful for sustainability purposes. So why charge on a sliding scale? I get this question a lot. And especially if you're in a rural community, sustainability. I will say that again, sustainability. If you are charging $200 to $350 an hour in a small community, your teachers can't afford you. Your nurses cannot afford you. Your fishermen who are fishing for the entire state and sometimes internationally cannot afford you. And therefore, if you're setting a rate at $300 an hour in a rural community, you are excluding an entire segment of your community population that you cannot help. And so on a sliding scale, you can now flex that. I can take some higher paying people and I can take some lower paying people, and they're gonna offset themselves. And so it's a long-term sustainable model. We've been operating for 6.5 years now, so I think I'm proving that we are, it's a sustainable model. So what are some of the benefits that could be useful to someone that is moving out, just graduated law school, that wants to open their own firm? Public service loan forgiveness. So that's one of the best parts about this is that was an interest for me is the public service loan forgiveness, quite a piece. Referrals. I don't just have to spend all my money on marketing. The court can refer people to me, and they do. Let me tell you, the walk-ins daily is astronomical from the courthouse. The clerks are just sending everybody down to our office. Other legal aid organizations, often the judges will tell people during a hearing where there's a pro se person, hey, you know there's a nonprofit down the street, why don't you go see them? So the referral sources is great. Funding, we can get donations, we can have grant money. So maybe the sliding scale isn't great, you haven't set it quite right, and if you're struggling, you can get donations and grant funds to help. Discounts. If you are a startup firm, getting the startup capital is really problematic. But as a 501c3, just go check out TechSoup. It's a website you can go to. If you're a nonprofit, you would not believe the discounts you can get on things like equipment, software, things like QuickBooks, laptops and computers. Google for nonprofits, so you can get Google Suite free. Google also has a nonprofit marketing budget. It's like $500 a day. I've yet to figure it out, but maybe somebody can. I just want to close with this. In 2018, there was a survey. There were 54 known sliding scales across the country. There were 3 at the time in North Carolina. I still haven't figured out who the third was. But it was Gate City Legal, which is now known as Triad Legal Services in Greensboro, Interbanks Legal, and now we welcome Rich with Bull City Legal to our fold. But there are 3 of us. If you know more, send them my way.
Hi, my name is Wendy Sotolongo, and I run the Office of the Parent Defender with Indigent Defense Services. And I'm here with Ken Boxer. We're going to talk about another idea to add to all the excellent ideas that you've already heard. I want to say thank you to the state. I want to say thank you to the State Bar for putting this together, to Justice Newby, and especially to Jim O'Carey for really his vision, his commitment, and his support. A group of us have been meeting pretty regularly, Jimbo, myself, Mary, Kevin, Andy is here, Kathleen, I believe, is here, to try and explore the idea of creating nonprofits in rural areas that would that would do indigent defense. And we have been meeting regularly, and we're really very excited about this idea and have done a lot of work on it. And we'd like to bring it to you and encourage discussions and how we can help partner with each other to get this off the ground. We'd like to start primarily in the area of criminal defense and parent defense, as those are 2 areas that do allow for indigent defense services to reimburse the attorneys doing that work, so that would create some funding source to begin with. So we would, this is a bit of our proposed structure. I'm not going to go into it, but I'd love to talk with you the question and answer period. We've been talking to a lot of people, taking field trips up to New York to visit with Brooklyn defenders and just really try to brainstorm around this idea. We'd like for it to start in one area, and then if it's successful, to really to spread as a different model of providing indigent defense for clients in North Carolina. So again, we would be able to have some funding coming with a contract from IDS for reimbursement at the set rates. We are now at the point where we're looking at, because it's been mentioned as a nonprofit, we would be looking to be able to get source of funding from grantors, from in-kind support such as office space or administrative support, partnering with other nonprofits around that. So we thought this is a really great idea that would really be able to pull in law students, would be able to pull in attorneys who are interested in that kind of, that big picture and working for the good of the community. To talk more about that, I'm going to turn it over to Ken.
Thank you. I'm Kevin Boxberg. I'm a regional defender with Indigent Defense Services. This nonprofit organization, first, I want to thank the State Bar as well, Chief Justice Newby, for putting this event together and bringing this issue to the forefront. I also want to thank Jimbo Perry. You have organized a fantastic group. Mr. Pollard, Saralago, Mr. Andrews with Michael Best, Catherine Massaro, who is the former executive director of NCB and the now federal prosecutor in Eastern District of North Carolina. And I know I'm going to mess up Rob's last name, and I apologize, but Rob Barancott, he is the Associate Dean for Careers and Professional Development at UNC. We have been meeting on this issue since about April of this year. We have made a lot of great progress, and Vinny has laid out kind of what the structure would be. The benefits of this system, or this nonprofit, our goal is to provide young attorneys in these legal desert areas. Our youth, just like our grade school children, are our future. So we have to invest in the young attorneys. And the nonprofit organization will have the ability, unlike a private firm or do an internship, will have the ability to provide federal student loan forgiveness. We also had Ms. Azaro join the committee as well and provide her expertise from NC Leaf. Again, not to be confused with Golden Leaf, but NC Leaf as far as any sort of state student loan forgiveness for these young attorneys as well. Though we will, at the nonprofit, provide great support and mentorship for these young attorneys. They'll be able to provide excellent representation, holistic representation for those that they represent. I do want to mention, and the next benefit is increased well-being for attorneys. You may be a little confused by that. Right now, the summit we're talking about in Oasis, a shortage of attorneys. But we cannot forget about the attorneys who are currently practicing in these counties and what their well-being is. I know I supervise 7 counties on the court-appointed list. The morale is low. Their stress levels are high. Within the last several years, I personally know attorneys who have committed suicide. So I don't want that to be lost in this issue. I think this nonprofit is a great idea because it's going to provide attorneys to these underserved areas and then reduce the caseload limitations for those attorneys that are currently practicing. Reducing the caseload kind of ties into the next benefit of this nonprofit organization, which is a better quality of representation. The State Bar had a study done, the North Carolina State Bar had a study. It was a private appointed counsel caseload and compensation study, a report of the subcommittee on compensation of court appointed counsel. And the closing remarks, the author said, an alarming number of attorney respondents reported that due to the size of their caseloads, they were unable to perform critical tasks with reasonable effectiveness. Moreover, attorney responses indicated that experienced attorneys are choosing to remove themselves from local court-appointed lists, contributing to the workloads of those attorneys remaining on the list. And again, that goes back to the attorneys on the list shouldering that burden in these high caseloads. And then in turn, that reduces the quality of representation that our Constitution and our clients demand. So this nonprofit organization is going to provide attorneys to these underserved areas, reduce these caseloads, provide a better quality of representation. I also want to mention safer communities. That's another one that you may be puzzled by. Safer communities, reduced workloads means more time that the attorney can spend on the case. If we can identify the needs that brought the defendant into the courtroom, then I think that will make our community safer. I'll give you 2 examples. In Lenore County, Chief District Court Judge Elizabeth Heath created an adult accountability and recovery court as well as a family accountability and recovery court. The adult accountability and recovery court started in January 2023. So far has a 95% retention rate and the recidivism rate, 0. Harnett County, well, also the Family Accountability and Recovery Act focuses more on the abuse and neglect of the children. The recidivism rate is not tied to reoffending, but more so in the scope of the family court. And they currently have 25 active participants, 5% recidivism for those participants. Harnett County has a Veterans Treatment Court. In Harnett County, the completion rate of that program is in the mid to upper 90s. The recidivism rate, 7%. That shows that if we as lawyers can take the time to identify the needs and provide the resources to meet those needs, then we can not only improve the quality of life of that individual, but we can also make our community safer. Lastly, Chief Justice Newby, you opened and mentioned justice delayed is justice denied. I think that this nonprofit will assist with not denying justice. And oftentimes, and Mr. Lee, you mentioned the shortage of prosecutors, we have shortage of public defenders. That equates to a delay in justice, both for victims and for defendants. This nonprofit, we intend on providing those attorneys to be able to reduce the caseloads, allow those attorneys to prepare their cases for trial, allow these attorneys to accept new cases, and then obviously funding for PDs and prosecutors as well. But again, this nonprofit is in tune with Your Honor's mission of not delaying justice. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sylvia Novinsky. I'm the director of the North Carolina Pro Bono Resource Center, which is a program of the Equal Access to Justice Commission under Jennifer Lechner's leadership. The Pro Bono Resource Center is really about getting the message out to North Carolina attorneys, paralegals, and law students about the importance of pro bono, about the role that every single of us can play in meeting this access to justice gap. It is not the answer, but it is a part of promoting access and addressing access to justice. We do a number of different things. I would say the primary thing we do is convene and offer technical assistance to various legal services offices that are looking for how to develop pro bono projects, how to get lawyers engaged. We have done a number of things in working with different legal services providers. One of them is bringing urban attorneys to rural areas. We've done that through disaster legal services and working with legal aid and Leslie to do that. Very often it involves a crisis. It involves something that really tears at lawyers' heartstrings to say, I want to go there and I want to help. But after that, it's actually really hard to get lawyers from Charlotte, from Raleigh, from the Triad to either the western parts of the state or the eastern parts of the state. What we can use is utilize technology. We can talk about how to bring lawyers virtually from one part of the state to another part of the state. However, what we found is that technology is not always accessible in those parts of the state. We've done a number of projects where, unfortunately, the internet doesn't work, even in the courthouses. We've done work where in community libraries, the internet doesn't work. We've also found that a number of our community residents don't know how to utilize technology, and so that involves staff in helping them figure out how to utilize technology. We've had a number of instances where not only our lawyers, but pro bono lawyers go to other parts of the state and find themselves at the end of the docket, or being looked at and said, you're not from around here, what are you doing here? Even from the local bar. And so one of the things that we talk about with our pro bono attorneys is getting ready for that, getting ready to understand what are the local rules in that area, or what are the local norms in that area that differ from even their own practice area in a larger city. I think eCourts will hopefully address a lot of that, but we also know that it takes a little bit of convincing for some lawyers who are used to doing what they're doing and having them go to another part of the state. We know that building relationships with the local community is the way to address and talk about unmet legal needs. One of the things that I'm very cognizant of is I don't encourage us or any other group to go into a legal community without a partner in that community, without understanding what their needs are, what they're looking for, what are the current resources, what do they want? And then we bring lawyers in to those different rural communities, or just to talk about unmet legal needs. We know that we don't have the answer, we know that the communities do, but very often it takes staff to do that. And that's one of the things that I also want to talk about and emphasize is that all of this work involves people. It involves people going on the ground, it involves resources, it involves thinking and really looking at best practices in other areas and how we can do that. I feel very fortunate to have this position and to be able to work on the ground with so many great legal services providers. I would encourage each of you to think about what is your pro bono practice? What are you emphasizing to your lawyers? What are you asking them to do? Asking them to get out of their comfort zone, asking them to take on a case. It is so important, it is so valuable, it is so meaningful, and it is why we went to law school. It is about helping people. So please consider pro bono as part of the needing the access to justice gap.
Thank you so much. One thing is, how many of you in here have learned something this morning that you did not know before? Okay. Then success, because that is the primary goal. I think today was to try to educate about not just that we know that there's a problem, but also some fixes, solutions. Two things. One, if you would please, at the end of the summit today, we are going to have a group picture made. So if you could please, it won't take us long. We're pretty quick at getting that done. We'll meet at this end behind me for a quick photo. The other thing is the next panel members, if you want to go ahead and stand up and start walking. So everyone, we're going to start again. Before our next panel, Jimbo, I really have to say that one of our early panelists who could not be here today. Jimbo, you want to?
Yeah, I'll do that real briefly. Actually, he was going to be on the section Creative Ways to Provide Legal Services. And he's a lawyer from the eastern part of the state. His name is Frank Swindell. And I think his idea is a good one, and so thank you for listening. He got stuck in court. All of us from small practices, small towns understand having to be in 5 courtrooms at a time. So, my name is Jimbo, but I'm going to read it like I'm Frank. So my name is Frank Swindell. I'm an attorney who has been licensed to practice in North Carolina since 1996. I've had a variety of practice life, including solo practice for the last 21 years. Recently, I decided to leave the solo mentality and grow a bigger firm. I've made this decision for basically 2 reasons. Number one, I've been extremely blessed by the practice of law as a profession. I've been able to provide for my family in a way that most people do not. Because of my profession as an attorney, I feel it's my duty and responsibility to pay it forward to the next generation of attorneys. I've always coached my 3 children soccer, basketball, and tennis. I enjoyed teaching and shaping individuals in athletics and decided that those skills could be transferred to coaching new attorneys. Thus, I've decided that as a profession, the legal field needs experienced attorneys who are willing to provide professional, financial, and ethical coaching to new attorneys. This is nothing new to the profession, but it was a new thought process for me, and I have eagerly embraced it. Not only has the legal profession blessed me and my family, but I have been able to provide professional assistance to a number of people who truly needed help but could not afford an attorney. For 20 plus years, I've been on some form of indigent defendant service program, providing a range of professional services at affordable cost to either criminal defendants or parents involved with abuse and neglect proceedings. I like to think I made a difference in their lives by providing excellent legal services when they needed it most and when they could least afford it. Some of my former abuse and neglect clients are the most memorable and heartbreaking of my career. As a profession, I think we should be willing to help those who need it most. Right now, my community needs more attorneys willing to take these cases. I want to help. So my plan is to hire more attorneys, and I'll say he has hired more attorneys. He's hired, I think, 3 attorneys just in the past few months. I want to hire more attorneys and coach him to be professional. I also am going to educate him in the finances of the legal practice. I learned a long time ago the old saw about giving a man a fish versus teaching a man to fish. I believe in the dual responsibility in providing for yourself and providing for others. For that reason, I advise my new hires to limit the court-appointed work to no more than 25 hours a week. This gives them a chance to make a profitable practice from the first day of employment. This also allows me to continue to provide a legal practice for them to grow and learn from. He goes on to say, basically, when he hires you, when Frank hires someone, he brings them to his main office in Kinston, where he practices. He trains the lawyer for a couple months, and then he puts them in the location where they want to work, in a smaller community. And he operates the office, he covers the expenses of the office, and he arranges for cost sharing so that he can actually pay the bills, help them make a good, reasonable living, and him make a little bit of money also. This process has allowed me already to open up offices in 2 other communities. Despite some growing pains, I'm optimistic I can continue this incubator model to recruit more attorneys to underserved areas and train them to practice professionally and be financially independent. What a great idea. And maybe some of us small town practitioners, we do kind of get a little silo focused, don't we? We're in survival mode, but maybe if we could increase that vision and think about bringing on some of these younger attorneys, treat them the way we would have wanted to be treated when we first got out of school, and help them get their practices going. This really complements so well what Mark is doing with the legal incubator and what Tom is doing with helping for that. So, thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Hopefully everybody got something to eat. And we are now ready, I think, for the last panel. There's a little change in our plan after this panel. Before we have open discussion, we're going to go ahead and take a photograph. And so we'll give some direction on what you need to do on here. Right here? Okay. The next panel. We look forward to hearing what you have to tell us about finding incentive and reframing the conversation through recruiting.
You know, Mike?
Mike, can you pass it on?
Hello, I'm Mike Waters. I'm the district attorney from the 11th Cross Court District, which is Granville, Franklin, Vance, Warren, and Person counties. And I have to get COVID after lunch. So I'm a UNC teaching fellow, a graduate of NCCU Law, a former private practitioner, and like my colleague, Bernie Lee over there, I've spent time on both sides. And I lead a team of 13 ADAs that, as of this day, are prosecuting the 1,467 felonies that have been filed this year and the 2,497 misdemeanors. We should be 18. We have 18 allotted positions from the legislature. I have had 2 applicants for those 5 positions in the last 100 days. I've lost ADAs to other state jobs mostly. People leave my office and they go work for the Department of Public Safety, Secretary of State, other state agencies that need AG's office, other state agencies that hire people after they've left and gotten the experience from the DA's offices. And I tell my applicants, if you come here and you stay 3 to 5 years, you'll have a chance to participate and try very, very serious cases. You'll get to help lots of people, and you'll be impactful to our community in which we serve, meaning that if people feel safer, they leave, visit with each other, they go places, they impact the economy, they exercise, their physical and mental health is better. And all of the ADAs that work for me respect and understand that our best allies in the court system in delivering justice are competent and prepared defense attorneys. We, as Ms. Pollard said earlier, sometimes don't have them. And so for our administrative superior court back in Vance County last week, where we had about 160 defendants calendared, It started off with notice to Judge Oakley that anybody that needed an indigent attorney that week, we were going to have to send an email and see if we could get someone appointed to them. Why that is impactful. The week also started with an attorney withdrawing from a murder case. It is that defendant's third or fourth attorney over 3 or 4 years. And what that means for a county like Vance, who I'm appearing before their county commissioners on Tuesday of next week, is you spend $36 million on a new jail to accommodate people that are just not able to have attorneys, not able to have representation so that they can make their way through the court system. Or do you put them in a new school? The ADAs that work for me and all the people in the court system understand how important it is to move these cases through. As the Chief Justice said, justice delayed is justice denied. And we got a gold star during the pandemic, and we figured out some creative ways to do things, and we emerged from the pandemic with roughly the same number of cases or better than we did before, but we're distilled a little differently. And before we were a brandy, and now we're a bonded whiskey with respect to the people that left. Because, people just don't want to sign up to go away to prison for a long time. And I can understand that. I am the board chair for NC Leaf, and I follow Bert Kemp, who is the public defender from Pitt County, who asked me to follow him, and I'm very proud to have done that. The NC Leaf, Legal Education Assistance Fund, helps students with law school debt, and its mission is to assist in the recruitment and retention of public interest attorneys with loan repayments. So what that means for the ADAs that come and work for me, that means that they're able to supplement what I would say their salaries that are insufficient by having loan repayment. It allows them to do things that help them put roots in the communities, like buy houses, start families, and those types of things. Public assistance attorneys include assistant public defenders, assistant DAs, pro bono organizations like Fiscal Legal Services and Legal Aid, and private attorneys with 80% more court-appointed cases, and not many people know that. And so that's something that is a group that is presently underrepresented with respect to the applicants. I'd like to remind everybody, law school days, the debt payments are resuming. And I had many of my ADAs that just stopped seeking debt relief because the payments weren't being solved. But now that they are resuming, we anticipate there are going to be a lot more applications for NC Leaf. We're going to need assistance with donations, and we will need the continued assistance of the legislature for our funding. But what I would say is NC Leaf is uniquely situated because of its structure, not only to deliver this debt relief, but also to help implement some of the other models that have been discussed about today, such as internship stipends and the possibility of helping or assisting administering a program model, something like the NC Teaching Fellows, to help get people to go to these rural communities and practice. Thank you.
Thank you, I guess the next part of the panel discussion.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, I'm Todd Edwards. I'm not an attorney. I'm a friend of Jimbo's, so we're going to have a support group for that later. I'm a general contractor and developer. I grew up in Shelby, North Carolina, spent 10 years in Raleigh, spent the last 29 years in Farmville. Farmville's a town of about 5,000 people, and we are one attorney, 5,000 person town, so I definitely understand what you're talking about here. But I'm coming to speak with you here today because of some volunteer efforts that I put forth in the last few years. I work with the NC East Alliance. It's a 29-county economic development entity that runs from the Virginia line, I-95, down to Onslow, over to Wayne counties. It's not the entirety of the East. We have the Southeast region headed by Steve Yost, but we're the 29 counties north of his 9. And of our 29 counties, 22 are Tier 1. That's 22 of the 40 in North Carolina. We include a lot of that red area that you included in the legal deserts. But I'm here also today, as part of those efforts, we do traditional economic development work, but more and more we're focusing our energies on our workforce development. That is, you are singing the same song with every other industry, institution. Dr. Waldron down at HCU Health Systems is on our board of directors. Everyone's having the same conversation, especially in rural areas. Our specific efforts to address this problem first took the form in 2012 with STEM East. And we took the initiative. We were one of the first large-scale STEM education support networks in the country. We are the largest rural STEM education network in the country by far. And we provide content and training and collaboration with 29 school systems and 16 community colleges. And I'm going to see if I can make this work. Let's see. All right, okay. Well, let's see. I'm going to go to this one first. This is what we call our NASCAR placard. We have a bevy of partners and partnerships in developing the content for this. And those folks, they provide content, they provide support, they provide information. We've had some successes with STEM East, but what we realized about 4 years ago was some of our greatest successes were for the most part relegated because our best and brightest students that we were producing in the East became our greatest export. We were doing a great job of educating, we were doing a great job turning their attention toward certain industries, certain opportunities, certain education opportunities, but then they were leaving. They were coming to Charlotte or the Triangle or out of state. And so we really realized that we were getting half the equation right. And so our focus turned then toward what do we do about this? And a lot of the same conversations y'all are having today we had 4 years ago. We realized that we need to do workforce development on a higher level with connectivity and marketing associated with it. It was place-specific workforce development. We need to do workforce attraction, and we need to do workforce retention. All of those things, but our fatal flaw was that we were spending a lot of money and time developing talent that was leaving our area. And so the critical thing, as y'all all identified today, it's one thing to tell people about opportunities. It's a very different thing to paint a picture, give them connectivity, and I don't know who said it earlier, but it is a one-on-one interpersonal thing. When you pour down with someone local, some young student who shows an interest, it takes specific individuals spending time with them, explaining opportunities. All the programs in the world don't take the place of that. It is a one-on-one situation. And so from that standpoint, we set out to change the script a little bit. Our Industry and Schools initiative, it was very bold. If you look at our 29 counties, we have 29 participating school systems, because some counties have 2, and 16 community colleges. We have two of our counties are not participating. They are, but they're not paying to participate. We also went to we'd always been serving these counties, but we wanted them to have skin in the game. So we asked these counties to pay to be part of this, as well as the community colleges, and they have. We've asked them to participate, to move forward with us together on this. We have a lot of our initiatives were kind of just morphing and tweaking our traditional STEM East education efforts. That partnership list you saw earlier, they all had ideas. We all sat around the table with them. They provided money. They provided ideas. And when we decided what we want to do, which I'm going to roll up for you here in just a second, it's taking a lot of heavy lifting. It's taking a lot of money. It's taking a lot of time. Which we're getting ready to tackle is not going to be easy. I can tell you that right now. But if you get a few dedicated folks, it can happen. I do need to address from that list, you probably couldn't see it, but one of our great partners, and so this is a good starting block for you guys already. Kilpatrick Townsend Stockton has been amazing for us. They came in, especially John Irwin and Nelson Freeman. They stepped in pro bono and gave us hundreds of hours of time because they believed in our initiative. And they have introduced us to partners that we never could have gotten in the room with. They've taken partners that we already had and convinced them to add zeros to what we're doing. Just the connectivity they offered. So those guys, as far as I'm concerned, John Irwin and Nelson Freeman are rock stars. They're big. So I'm buzzed.
Yeah, but what we're going to do is we're going to shift some of Shelby's time to give it to you.
Okay.
You get 3 more minutes.
I'll do it quick. As we're approaching
I had to talk to Shelby about that.
As we're approaching this, we're shifting from providing teacher content to turning our teachers into knowledgeable influencers. We have 13,000 teachers in our region, and we have 384 schools in our region. And our goal through our industry clusters is to identify at a pin drop, all through that 29 county region, if you drop a pin at any location, geofence-wise, you can look at that and be able to pull up, and we're creating this database, which you can look up and pull up any job opportunities, any industries, any jobs within that industry or institution, the education required for each of those jobs at that place. We're then going to teach the teachers how to be influencers for their students. We can't teach all 14,000 how to become experts at this, but our goal with those 384 schools is that as part of those clusters, and we've already started some of those clusters, we've already started our medical and life sciences, we've had our initial meetings in Greenville on that. We started a Smart Ag initiative in we've had our initial meetings in Kansville. We started our aerospace cluster, we've had that initial meeting in Havelock. We're going to have in 2 weeks our drone technologies cluster first meeting in Washington. We're creating these overlays. We're going to have a boat industry cluster. We would love to have a medical cluster and a legal cluster. And the idea that in some of our pin drops, there may be 7 clusters that are affected that you find a job. The legal and the medical can just virtually be in every single cluster that we create. But our goal of the 384 schools is to have at least one teacher in that school that is expert in one of those clusters. So in one of those schools, of those 384 schools in our 29 counties, there's going to be one teacher that's fully versed on what the NC Bar Association is doing to connect students with the idea of practicing rural law. And if a teacher gets wind that their student might be interested in law, they'll go talk to Mr. Smith over there. He can get you directed. It's an impossible lift to affect every student in our region, much less the whole state in rural areas. Not to mention 13,000 students. When we start talking about 384 schools, and anywhere from 8 to 15 clusters in each school, there can be one teacher that becomes an expert on that cluster in every single school. And that is the power of the exponentiality that comes from that. And so, I need to wrap up. I've got about 50 other things I'd love to tell y'all. But one thing is market. I would really encourage y'all to not let legal deserts leave this room. Because it's like, hey, y'all come on down here and work in the desert. That's terrible marketing. It really is awful. Opportunity zones, the land of opportunity. And one example to leave you with, and I ran the numbers before I came here, $50,000 a year salary indexed to the national average, or the national indexed cost of living. Where we're sitting here today inside the Beltline in Raleigh lives like $40,650.41. In Jimbo's hometown of Caston, North Carolina, that same $50,000 lives like $60,975.61. Folks, that's a 50% increase in livability on the same salary. We need to be marketing things like that to the students. It's like, oh, I don't want to live in Eastern North Carolina. You can live like a king in Eastern North Carolina. And I'll leave you with that. So, thank you all for
I'm on time, Jimbo. I'm Shelby Benton. I practice family law in Wayne, Lenore, and Greene counties. You've heard about those counties a lot today, and the wonderful work that Jimbo's done. Marcy and Chief Justice, thank you both for getting this together and moving us into this room together. I'm here to talk to you about the age-old adage you heard from the law schools already about this, which is having civics education, talking to the students at the middle and high school level, share a few ideas and talk about some information and some partnerships. So the Bar Association currently has a task force that's being chaired by former State Bar President, Greg Wilson. It's called the Justice Learning Center. The task of that task force is to create a virtual learning modules to go out to 7th and 8th graders across the state of North Carolina. They are working on that now. Hope that within the next year to 18 months to be able to actually have virtual information that will be available to every school and therefore every student in the state concerning civics education that gets people information about the law and how important that is to us. I would ask that we encourage our people, if you're doing stuff with the Bar Association or you're a counselor with the State Bar, that you find yourselves ways to get into the schools. And so State Bar counselors at every jurisdiction in the state, if they could do another extra piece, it's a lot of work to be a State Bar counselor, but in their own communities to organize or get people directly in the school. There's lots of information. When Chief Justice Martin was the Chief Justice, he first put out this pamphlet. Since then, Chief Justice Newby has updated it. You can go online and order it from AOC. They'll send you however many you want. You can take them into the schools with you. It's great swag that every student can take home with them. I'm giving them some information. The Bar Association, what is a lawyer? Again, easy information available, and I think if we just have a little bit more organization, I'm hoping that Todd and I are going to spend some more time on these clusters to get all this into schools, but we need the lawyers that are practicing to get out in these towns and speak. The AOC has a speakers bureau. The Bar Association has a speakers bureau. They've also just retained Sarah Dowd, who is a former educator in Wake County, that is specifically focused on civics education and getting the legal information out to potential middle school and high school students. The YLT, the Bar Association's YLT, if you're in the Bar Association, there's Grab a Coffee. It's with every law student. You can sign up between now and mid-September to grab a cup of coffee. You can do that virtually. So if you want to grab a coffee with somebody who's at Wake Forest Law and you're in Goldsboro, you don't have to go to Wake Forest, right? And you could try to make that match. So again, just other ways to think that you could outreach to the law schools and with the direct law students in your communities. And I just encourage that, Marcy, if there's a way to get that information to all your counselors, that would be another resource. We don't have to reinvent the wheel, right? We just need to form partnerships. And lots of the things we talked about today are all about that. Lastly, I'm going to switch my hat and tell you, I chair the IOTA board here for the state of North Carolina. It is a fabulous program that we have in North Carolina now for 40 years. And the Interest on Lawyers Trust Account has given out more than $111 million for civil legal aid in North Carolina. It's amazing. And but we give grants, and it comes off of mostly the Interest on Lawyers Trust Account. When it was mentioned that we could raise the Interest on Lawyers Trust Account, we can't do that. The way we do that is lawyers have their trust accounts with prime or benchmark partners. Those particular banks will pay a higher interest rate on your trust account, thereby creating more funds for us to be able to grant out. So the ideas in this room, don't forget that IOTA does give grants, mostly for direct civil legal aid, but also for administration of justice issues and ideas. Our grant applications are out now. They're going to come in mid-September. Mary, am I right? Mary is the executive director of IOTA. She's housed here in this building. Please reach out. NC IOTA, we'd be glad to give you information, because if you've got an idea or a program that's up and running that might qualify for some of this, please come to us. There's going to be, I think, a little extra money this year because our Interest on Lawyers Trust Account is just banging it out. However, it needs to be in the administration of justice world, and it needs to be towards civil legal services for people who do not have the ability to have services rendered. Thank you.
My name is Robert Member. I'm an assistant district attorney in District 29. That's Warren and Hoke counties. I work for Mike Harden, who's the elected DA of Warren and Hoke. Speaking with Jimbo and talking to him about my pathway from considering going to law school and going to law school interning and passing the bar. I attended UNC Pembroke. I see Dr. Malcolm down there. He was the general counsel when I was a student there. And I went, I left high school. I wanted to be a school teacher. Got an education degree at Pembroke. I student taught in Wilmington and returned back home to be a civics and economics teacher. But around my second year, I'm like, I think I want to be a lawyer. I love teaching, nothing bad, but I think I want to make a transition. And during that period of time, I met Mike Harden and his wife, Victoria, who's a family law attorney, and started talking to them and said, you know, I think I want to do this. Talking about the LSAT, you know, is going to law school worth it? Am I going to make money? Is it, you know, a terrible idea? There's too many lawyers, and they encouraged me and helped me through that process. Took the LSAT, got accepted in Central, and after my 1.0 year, thanks in part to a public interest stipend that Central had for students to receive a stipend working at a nonprofit or a government agency, I interned in Mike's office in Rayford, North Carolina. He was still the ADA at the time after my 1.0 year, and through my 3 years as a student. He was ultimately elected DA. Then in my 3rd year of the new prosecutorial district for Hope and Moore, and offered me a job. But I stayed in contact with him through law school, working with him, sitting for the bar. Then I passed the bar. I told my parents and family, but I visited him and his wife, and celebrating. I passed the bar. I can take the position as an ADA when he gets sworn in, and did work for him. But that relationship from before even taking the LSAT, just considering it and looking at this as a dream and an aspiration, but all the way through, I mean, gave me that confidence to depend on his boss. I can talk with him. Some things I learn from, some things I don't do well, things I do well, but that professional development where I know I'm in the place where I need to be. I don't foresee me leaving Moore Hope anytime soon because there's a great defense bar there, a great place to live. I do understand Moore County is a rural county and far different than other rural counties with Pinehurst and Southern Pines there, but it does have its challenges. Northern part of Moore, bordering Randolph and Montgomery has those challenges that other counties face. Another reason why I would want to stay in that Moore and Hoke and continue working as a prosecutor would be North Carolina Leaf. I applied for that right out the gate. Even with the loans being deferred, I wanted to apply and get accepted, not knowing when those were going to resume. I applied again in 2022, I applied again in 2023, just as long as I keep on applying, the next year I should be granted that opportunity. Where it now might work out that I have 3 years deferred with credit banked up, 4 years of NC leave, I might pay 3 to 4 years worth of loans, and then to 10 years, I have all my loans forgiven by the time I'm 37. So those opportunities, all those things interplaying with each other, made it possible for me to go to a place like Rayford, to a place like Carthage. Want to stay here, not want to leave, looking at other opportunities. Moore and Hope are also great work. I did want to leave. There's a lot of opportunity long-term because there are no 20-year-old attorneys in the criminal defense bar. There are 2 30-year-old attorneys. I'm one of them, a prosecutor. There's one that's a defense attorney. There's one 4-year-old attorney in the defense bar. So there is a long-term path for me if I decide not to be a prosecutor for my career. I want to stay there, go to private practice. But there is money to be made. There's opportunities to be had. But most importantly, there's good to do for the people of Moore and Hoke.
So I'm Gary Jordan. I practice criminal law in Rowan County, Salisbury. I want to thank Jimbo for all he's done with regards to this issue because I think it's an incredible lift. I don't think anyone with smaller shoulders could do it. I graduated from Campbell University, as I say, the real Campbell 1990, and I thought I wanted to go to the beach and practice law, and so I went down to Wilmington for about 3 years. And what I found out is, and if you know me, you'll know how sincere this is, I love Wilmington County. I absolutely love Salisbury. And Catherine, Jean, and Alice will tell you that if you come to my hometown, I'll take you around because I love it so much. And so I went to Wilmington for about 3 years, and I got homesick. I'm going to be honest with you, and I wanted to go back home. And there were a couple of reasons why I wanted to go back home. One, I looked at that peninsula down there that's called Blue Hanover County, and there were about 90,000 residents on that peninsula, and there were 475 lawyers. And I looked back home, and we had about 135,000, and we had about 125 lawyers. And so the numbers just didn't add up to stay down in Wilmington. The other reason why is because, and it's in the disparage to New Hanover County, but it wasn't home, and I wanted to raise my family where I grew up, because I felt like I loved my community so much that that was where I wanted to be. And so my wife and I, in 1994, went back to Wilmington County, and I can guarantee you it wasn't to make a lot of money. It was because of my sincere love for where I grew up at. I had the fortunate situation of working in the district attorney's office for about 6.5 years there, but then went out and found my real wedge with a local attorney there by the name of Cecil Whitley. And Jimbo knows Cecil very well, just from the time for his interview. Cecil is not only a mentor, but he is an exemplary example for me on what it's like being a small town lawyer. He's the kind of lawyer who, when he first came back to Salisbury, he was originally from Union County, went to college and fell in love with Salisbury while he was in college. But when he came back, he gave me the example of showing what we need to do in the community. We as a law firm encourage our associates, our lawyers there, to one, get on board, join a board, become part of the community. Don't just take money from the community, give back to the community. And so we do that, we try to do that. I encourage all our lawyers to do that, and I think that's an important thing, for especially these young lawyers who are coming back to these communities, to try to get themselves involved in the community, and that board membership is one of the best ways to do that, to handle that. Because we're always thought we were leaders in our communities. I know that we've taken a step back in that, not because of anything we've done, but just because of society. But I think we can take a big step to show people that we are the leaders of this community. I mean, we think differently than regular folks, and I don't mean that necessarily. We think differently. We analyze things differently. So I think we need to step up and become leaders for that. That may not be what you wanted me to talk about, but I do want to just say that one of the things that my law partner has instilled in me that I think is important, that I think is relevant to all of this, is the fact that we have law students, we have young people who will call us periodically, just like most of you guys probably receive phone calls saying, hey, I'd like a job, or I'd like an intern, or I'd like to come here and shadow you. And we take it upon ourselves when we get those phone calls like that we not only just talk to them and make sure they understand that we're listening to them, because a lot of times, I had a father walk up to me the other day and said, you know, my son wrote an email. He's a college student at UNCC. He wrote an email to a bunch of lawyers in Salisbury, and you were the only one who responded to him on email. And I thought, wow, you know, that's something little that we can do to make sure these folks understand what kind of folks we are as lawyers. But he instilled, my partner instilled in me that when you get a phone call like that, it's not enough just to talk to him on the phone. We invite him up to the office. We may not have a job, and we're up front with him, hey, this is not a good time for an internship for us, or, like this past summer, this young man who wrote me this email, I sent him an email back and said, look, we're not in a position to hire you right now. Please keep us in mind, and his dad came up. So tomorrow I'm gonna take him to lunch. And that's another thing my partner told me, kind of instilled in me that not only just ask him to come up to the office, take him to lunch. Sit down and talk to him, not about, you talk about the law, what it's like to be a lawyer in a small town, but talk about what life is like in our small towns. Because they may not have the same experience that you do, or have had during the time you grew up in that area. So that's what we try to do. I think it's just being a good person. I think that's what we all do, to try to strive to do. Jacob Rush is here, and Jacob met Jimbo at a dinner that we hosted. I think Jimbo was pretty impressed and invited Jacob to come, but I'll yield the rest of my time to Jacob and kind of let him tell his story as a law student.
Jacob, I think he actually took some of your time too. Just take a couple. Thank you. Jacob, if you just kind of share briefly why you were thinking about moving, maybe just one thing.
Hey everyone, I'm Jacob Rush. Like Gary said, I'm a 2L at Campbell. I'm also a graduate of Citadel Military College, South Carolina. I'm from Concord, so a county over from Salisbury. And I always knew that I wanted to go to law school. And after graduation from Citadel, I really didn't know what kind of law I wanted to do. I was kind of confused. And I don't remember all the circumstances surrounding it, but I do remember having lunch with Darren. So Darren, Dollar, and I went to high school together, and we were on a school marching team together. So I had met Darren before that, and I knew Darren was an attorney. And I think I reached out to him, and he said the same thing that he just said a second ago, that he had me come and have lunch with him and another partner. And from that moment, I can really say that I fell in love with that practice. And, I've always felt like from the first day that they truly cared about me, that, and throughout the whole time, different members of practice, whether they're the lawyers or legal assistants or whatever, they reach out to me and just see how I'm doing from time to time. Tell me good luck in school, and that's something that's really important to me that I don't think I can find somewhere else. And another thing is going into it, so I worked with Darren 2 summers. I actually worked the summer before my OL year, and then I worked this past summer. And going into it, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I think I remember standing in the front of the office telling him that I thought I might want to do something in business, some type of business law, because I got a business degree from Citadel. And I can tell you now that I could not have been more wrong. That's not what I want to do. And just being able to spend that time in a firm that really takes time to mentor you and help you, I really found where I want to end up. And it's really, I want to end up in a very similar position that Darren's in. Working criminal law, working with people in the community. Again, it's a county over, so at first I was a little bit hesitant because, it wouldn't quite be the same as practicing in Concord and Cabarrus County, but I can say that I'm so glad that I made that jump over there, and I still feel like that there's still people that I know, and I can still help the community up there, and it's right over. It's just the feel of it is totally different, and I would really attribute most of that to the mentorship that I was able to get from Darren and Cecil at the firm, and they really helped me refine what I wanted to do. And they didn't necessarily point me in a direction, they just kind of helped me work through it on my own, which I really appreciate. And now I'm at the point where, in a year and a half or so, I can't see myself going anywhere other than a small town. I really like to end up in Salisbury. I have pride in the city now. I was just thinking about it actually yesterday. We had shirts made at the law firm. I wore it to school because I'm proud of the law firm now. I really am. I'm not just saying that because Darren's here. But I'm really proud of it, and I love the lifestyle. I talked to Jimbo, and I'll be quick here. talked to Jimmy at the dinner, and I told him that I kind of wanted to work, I almost am working backwards. I kind of know what I want my lifestyle to look like, what I want my life. I want to have family, and we have a family farm, and I want to live on the family farm. And I told him based on that, I kind of want to work backwards. And where I got to is that, you know, small town practice is perfect for me. That's perfect. It's going to give me the lifestyle that I want. And I can even tell you right now that being back in school 3 weeks, I just said this a little bit ago, but I miss work. I miss working in that practice. So it's really a good fit for me. I think it would be a good fit for a lot of people. And I think that the mentorship that you can get or that you can offer to law students can really help them be able to make that decision, that have the courage to step out and, you know, in kind of a glass bowl of an echo chamber almost, everybody saying that you should go to legal law amongst the students in a law firm, to be able to have that courage and step out and go, that's not what I want for my life. I want to go to a small town firm. And I think that mentorship to help you work through that in your own mind is just so important. It really helped me. So thank you, Jerry, for that. Thank y'all for listening.
We have one more panel representative. He's not here. He's from a community college. And I just want to share in a minute, or I told Mark 30 seconds. The ABA has a program now that's a pipeline from community college, starting with juniors in high school up through law school. And there is a community college that's willing to take this on as a project. So keep your ears open. And if you have any connections with a community college in your community, if you would contact me, I would love to connect them with these folks who are going to be putting this program together, modeling it after the way in which they do a teacher's program. So let me know.
Thank you. I think there's several of you that did send your questions to Brian, and whenever he gets up here, we're going to kind of go through those, to make sure we answer those questions, or somebody can answer those questions.
We did have a number of questions submitted, and the first one was kind of a broad question of, is there room for kind of expanding the definition of legal deserts to recognize practice areas where there's lack of representation and or lack of services? And I think the answer is unquestionably yes. This is a very nuanced sort of issue. It's not just geographic areas, practice areas as well. But that's another component of this, right? There was another question that was directed to legal aid, asking about if you all have any difficulty attracting lawyers to work for legal aid. So, Leslie, do you want to address that?
That's a great question. I'm going to start by apologizing to Todd Edwards because Farmville used to have 3 attorneys, and then my husband and I moved to the metropolis of Greenville, and now we have 1. So, sorry about that. We do have trouble attracting attorneys, especially over the last few years, and particularly in our rural offices. And I do think part of that is our fault, quite frankly. I think we don't always do a great job of selling ourselves. Our salaries are not great. They're lower than the public defender's office and the district attorney's office, but we have generous benefits that equate to about 75% of that salary, and we don't often advertise that, so we're trying to do better with that. We have a self-funded loan forgiveness program that we offer to attorneys, and we also don't talk about the fact that we address one of the big concerns that attorneys in rural practice have, which is the lack of mentorship. We have over 200 attorneys at Legal Aid, and so when you start out as a new attorney, even if you're in a rural office, you have the backing of all of that experience, and we have some real experts in many types of practice in our firms. You get the benefit of getting into the court, in front of the Court of Appeals very quickly, getting into the federal court, and doing some really exciting things at Legal Aid. So we're hoping to fix that problem by selling ourselves a little better and partnering with the law schools more frequently.
There's a broad question here of, creative solutions with court-appointed challenges are very helpful, but what can the profession do to come together and support systemic change, including potential increases in funding? That's the $1,000,000 question, I guess.
Jerry's.
Yeah.
So I don't. I'll pass the mic down. Is that working?
Here we go. So, nobody goes into public defense or to a prosecutor's office expecting to get rich. They do it because they have a heart for the work. They feel it's a way to serve their clients and their communities and really make a difference in people's lives, one person at a time. That being said, we all have to pay the bills, right? I do think we need to globally, as a profession, lawyers who maybe don't do this work need to join with us to educate all policymakers about how important this is for our communities. Because we are a profession, right? And we all took that oath to uphold the Constitution and all its attendant promises. So I can talk all day long, and the people who do our work can talk all day long about how we need funding. But we'd love for everybody to join in with us. I can tell you when somebody like Ray Lee or Mike Waters, as they both did today, recognizes or calls out the need for qualified, competent lawyers so that they can do their jobs and so that the system works, that helps a lot. So the more voices we have, the better. So come on board. Thank you.
I think this is supposed to be an open discussion time. If anybody else has something else to add, then by all means, raise your hand and we'll get the mic to you. I had a couple questions to the law schools, wondering what are private law schools doing to reduce their tuition so law students have less debt, or even what are schools doing, or what are they considering in terms of loan forgiveness and scholarship that can try to have placing students in legal deserts. We all recognize debt is a huge issue.
He came and pointedly put the microphone in front of wait for us. So, with the caveat that I am not the dean at Wake Forest. I'll say it again, I'm not the dean at Wake Forest Law School. I will say, so that's a very complex issue, and thankfully I'm not the dean. So I will say that most law schools and at sort of our level and are significantly discounted tuition on the front end. When you look at a number that is on our website, you can the law school is bringing in about 50% to 40 to 50% of that number in tuition revenue. That is offset by scholarship dollars that is being raised through our alumni through donations.